but also inflation is up, consumer sentiment is down, and the Atlanta Fed has now predicted that we're going to contract this quarter in terms of GDP. That is shocking. And that is all because of the actions of one person, the president, who is massively harming our economy. And then I'd like to conclude now on Ukraine. I don't know why Donald Trump is scared of Putin. He clearly is. He acts.
These guys are clowns. Please follow the live stream on Rumble, and on you can also watch the live stream on YouTube. YouTube has the dashboard of the Asian market and the trading that's going on in the futures market and the equity markets for the Asian session. So thank you for watching. Hello, my name is Dr. Paul Cottrell, and we're going to be doing live streaming of Trump's speech in Congress. There's a joint session that's going to be taking place at 9 o'clock. So right now is kind of like the pre-speeches and everything. So we're going to go over some of that, and I'll go over some of the products that you can stack to help with your health and wellness. All right. But thank you for joining. I'll also open up X Spaces. I'm not going to be doing live streaming on my website tonight. It's just Rumble, YouTube, and X Spaces. But thank you for joining.
He puts on, people watching at home should know that Trump and House Republicans want to steal your health care, steal your taxpayer money, and hand it over to their billionaire buddies and to their donors. In Congress, Republicans are advancing a budget that would end Medicaid as we know it. And Elon Musk is trying to cut your Medicare and your Social Security. Social Security that seniors earned throughout their lifetime is what Elon Musk just recently called a quote-unquote Ponzi scheme. I'll say it again. Elon Musk just called Social Security, quote, the biggest Ponzi scheme of all time, end quote. That's right. A guy that makes $8 million per day from federal government contracts thinks that seniors getting $65 a day from Social Security is a quote-unquote Ponzi scheme. Their plan is plain and simple. Guys like Elon Musk get richer, and you get screwed. But here's the good news. Democrats are united and fighting back to protect your Social Security, your Medicare, and your Medicaid. New Democrats, Congressional Progressive Caucus Democrats, the two biggest ideological caucuses here in the Congress, have put out a joint letter that includes 100% of our members from our two coalitions saying we will not vote to cut your Medicare, your Medicaid, and your Social Security. Over 200 House Democrats showed just in a matter of days that we are united with the American people in this fight. So while we may not all agree on every single issue, we are saying with one voice, hands off Medicare, hands off Medicaid, and hands off of Americans' Social Security. So now the question becomes, will any three House Republicans grow a background? Will any three House Republicans do the right thing and act like U.S. representatives instead of like Trump employees and join us? Because if three congressional House Republicans join together with Democrats to do the right thing, there will be no Social Security cuts. We can prevent cuts to Medicaid and Medicare and to Social Security. But if House Republicans choose instead unanimously to come after Social Security and Medicaid and Medicare, then they will own the terrible consequences for working people.
House Democrats continue to speak ahead of President Trump's address to Congress. And a live look right now at Capitol Hill. Soon we will see movements from President Trump leaving the White House in about 35 minutes. So we'll keep an eye on everything that is happening out in D.C. We'll take one more break here on Live Now from Fox. Stay right here with us. We'll be back in just moments.
All right, I had to adjust the volume. For the ones that are watching on YouTube, you get the dashboard of the Asian market. We're going to be talking about that shortly here. There's going to be probably some market moves as Trump talks, so we're going to pay attention to that. We're live streaming on Rumble, and I'm going to be setting up X Spaces soon so you can listen in. We're going to stream the whole speech, non-interrupted. I'm not going to do any commercials. I'm going to do the commercials beforehand. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the structural nano silver soaps that I have. I have peppermint and lavender. All right, in the new packaging. It's the same structural nano silver soap, but just in new packaging. It's a very high quality soap. Get a few bars for your household and help support my work. And I also have it in the older packaging, the charcoal tea tree and the lemongrass. So get a couple bars for your household, or a few bars. They're very high quality. Help support my work. Go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and support your health and wellness. Now, I also have structural nano silver toothpaste. The structural nano silver toothpaste it'll whiten your teeth, freshen your breath, reduce inflammation at your gum line, improve your gum line, and with good oral hygiene, you're reducing the chances of valvular disease and cardiovascular problems. So good oral hygiene is really important, especially when you get older. So this is the best toothpaste you're going to get. It has no fluoride, so it's fluoride free. It has structural nano silver. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get this very high quality toothpaste. Get a few bars for your household. It's very high quality, and it's literally the best toothpaste that you can buy. There's nothing that you can buy better. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5, and you get $5 off any order. I want you to use the discount. I want these products in your hand. I know people are, having a little bit of difficulty in terms of the inflation and all that, but it's important to stick to your health protocols, because that compounding effect when you get older is going to be really important into your geriatric years. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Now, I also partnered up with Rainbow Herbals, and we've developed these deodorant bars. You can get it in citrus or in peppermint, lavender, and tea tree. It's for males and females. It's a dual purpose deodorant. You use it as a deodorant every day, but it also will help to detoxify your body. It's made from essential oils from the Himalayas, extremely high quality. This is aluminum free and baking soda free. Guess what? Get a couple bars for your household, use it every day, help to detoxify your body, and use it as a deodorant. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get a few bars of this for your household. Use discount 5 for any order, and you get $5 off. And it's really important to detoxify your body. Why? Well, if you have a lot of toxins in your body, it's going to affect your immune system and your endocrine system and your other bodily systems. So by regularly detoxifying your body, you're improving your systems. So zeolite is a great way to get rid of heavy metals, toxins, and chemicals, including PFAS. So that's forever chemicals. So take 2 small drops underneath your tongue, drink filtered water, do that every day, and what will happen is zeolite will bind to the toxin and allow you to excrete that out, urinate that out in about 6 to 8 hours. Now, some people prefer to do a heavier detox, maybe once or twice a year. For those individuals, take about 5 drops underneath your tongue, small drops, drink the filtered water, and then do that every day until the bottle's done, and do that once or twice a year. But it is better to do a daily maintenance. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and take the zeolite. Now, it is very important that you also drink filtered water and stay away from heavy processed foods, because processed foods have a lot of chemicals in it. So it's really important to kind of reduce your exposure and to detoxify what is in your body. So let's go back to the pregame of the speech here.
Demonstrated that last week when they went after healthcare and Medicaid for American families. They have the votes, they have the responsibility to govern. But let's talk about the process. Rosa DeLauro has submitted an offer to Republicans. They walked away. Speaker Johnson has said that he wants the CR to be bipartisan. There has been no outreach from the administration or the Speaker to Leader Jeffries. So that's where things stand. Republicans have walked away, and Republicans have the votes. Then they have demonstrated time and time again that with their unity, they can go after health care and programs that we feel are important to the American people.
All right, let's go to ABC's pre-speech coverage here.
Prepares to address
Donald Trump,
the Dow plunging for the second day in a row, now down 1,300 points in 2 days, as Trump's new tariffs ignited trade war. The president imposing a sweeping new 25% tax on all goods coming into the U.S. from Mexico and Canada, America's largest trading partners. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau quick to respond.
I want to speak first directly to the American people. We don't want this. We want to work with you as a friend and ally. And we don't want to see you hurt either. But your government has chosen to do this to you.
The Canadians have a lot more to lose than the Americans. So if you play chicken, the Americans are going to win on this issue. The economy will be disastrous for Canada. It will be problematic for the Americans, for the U.S., for the United States, but it's going to be devastating to Canada. And guess what? You know what? They have devastated many different parts of our manufacturing in the United States for the last 35 years, and I don't feel bad. I do not feel bad. You know what? It's about time that we start wising up that we need to have a more manufacturing economic prowess.
2. Canada now responding with plans for their own 25% tariff against $155 billion worth of American goods.
Canadians are reasonable, and we are polite, but we will not back down from a fight. Not when our country and the well-being of everyone in it is at stake.
Around the country, the anxiety among small business owners palpable. In Chicago, Marco Rodriguez owns a chain of candy stores that have been in his family for over 30 years.
Scary. I mean, it's a scary time in our business. Everything you see around us is either imported by ourselves or we bought by ourselves and made in Mexico.
Trump has also imposed an additional 10% tariff on products from China. Heidi Skelton says that will drive up prices at her clothing store in Westwood, New Jersey.
I'm paying rent, employees, paying for the clothing, so I will have no other option really but to pass some of the charges onto my customers.
China now retaliating with an additional 10 to 15% tariffs on some U.S. goods, including chicken, wheat, soybeans, and beef, and calling Trump's actions bullying behavior. Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum saying she will announce retaliatory tariffs on Sunday. Trump tonight prepared to double down, saying he'll fight back with even more tariffs, an approach we can expect him to tout in his speech tonight.
Tariffs are easy, they're fast, they're efficient, and they bring fairness.
Mary Bruce reporting for us there, and joining us now is Florida Representative Byron Donald. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate you coming back on the show. What are you expecting to hear from President Trump tonight?
I think the president's going to cover all of his successes in the last 45 days. Closing our border, border crossings have plummeted since he became president of the United States. Getting men out of women's sports, something that the American people massively support. 80% of the American people support that. bringing peace into the Middle East region, actually getting a deal done on getting hostages back, and getting close to actually bringing an end to the war in Ukraine, and so many other things. He has a lot to celebrate, a lot to tell the American people, but then also to call on Congress to get moving on delivering on the rest of his agenda.
Business leaders and consumers as well tell us that they worry that the president's latest tariffs will only raise prices on a number of goods. Economists insist that that's exactly what will happen. How do you think that the president will try to put those fears to rest tonight?
A couple of things. Number one, we need Canada and Mexico to take our borders seriously as well. We do need China to stop sending precursor material for fentanyl to Mexico. Fentanyl is the number one killer of people between the ages of 18 and 45. The president takes our security just as serious as every family in America does. And so I think the response to the American people is give us the opportunity to do the job that we talked about on the campaign trail. We are going to get this economy roaring again. We're going to get prices down. What we're having to do with tariffs in this current situation is about securing our nation. But to a broader level on tariff policy, for a long time, free trade meant that there were bad trade deals where the American manufacturer, the American farmer, the American business person is being taken advantage of because other nations tariff our goods and we do not respond in kind. That's why the president laid out reciprocal tariff policy so that we can actually get to an even playing field so we not only have free trade, but also fair trade.
What's your message tonight to your consumers?
The things he's trying to get done.
All right, we're going to pivot from ABC News to actually balance of power from Bloomberg here.
Economic uncertainty right now, and so as Emery said, he's going to address these economic issues with Congress and basically tell Congress this is what I need you to do. And tariffs, who knows where we're going to wind up with tariffs? But at the end of the day, it's a signature issue for him, and of course, border.
Mm-hmm. So there's the rundown, the menu of options for Rick Davis. Jeannie Shanzana, was this Democrats' darkest hour? Do they sit on their hands all night?
We don't know how they're going to respond. They've been advised not to respond, to let the president speak, and to hold their fire for a midterm that they expect they're going to have a lot of different things to run on. But whether they listen to that advice is another question. But, one word that people have been saying to describe what we're going to hear tonight is fireworks. I don't know what that means, and I'm waiting to see, but they are saying fireworks.
And from Trump or Democrats?
From Trump.
Okay.
And so this is what we kept hearing. So I don't know how this is going to pan out, but what we do know is that he is coming to a chamber where Republicans have been advised by their own Republican leadership to stop going to town halls with their own constituents as a result of the pushback they've been getting at those town halls regarding DOGE, which the president will probably celebrate, and Elon Musk will almost certainly be in the chamber.
All right, I just want to bring up what's going on in the Asian markets here. So the S&P 500 futures is trading at 5,822 right now. The pound USD is trading at 1.27. Natural gas futures are trading at 4.3. Gold futures are trading at 2,923. Brent crude is trading at $70.96 a barrel. Copper futures are trading at 4.57. The Hang Seng index hasn't opened up yet, but it closed at 22,941 last session. And the Nikkei is at 37,309. 37,309.
Whether it's on, ceasefire or whether it's on the end of the war completely. So that is really in flux. And even though tariffs seem to move around, nothing's moving around as fast as Ukraine negotiations. And so maybe he'll have some good news there. And of course, we know Donald Trump likes to talk about good news. So I would expect, and this is what I'll be listening for, is does he announce that they've now come to an agreement on a minerals deal, and we can get back to where we were last Friday, which is Zelensky's coming to town, or we're just going to sign this thing without him traveling, and get that first step toward the end of hostilities in Ukraine. And I think that would be a big
moment in this speech tonight. The theme of this address, according to the White House, is the renewal of the American dream. Wall Street does not seem to feel that way at the moment, Jeannie. If you look at the last couple of days' market action in response to all this tariff news, does Donald Trump need to speak to the market tonight and make the case for tariffs?
You know, I think he does, and I think it's beyond the market. I think we're seeing in public opinion polls, Donald Trump got elected because he said he would bring down costs for the average American. And he's only 6-7 weeks in, so it's very early. But according to the polls, that has not happened. And now, to your point, he has put in these tariffs, which arguably in the next few days are going to make prices at the grocery store, where average Americans like us go, higher. So I think what he's got to do is explain why this pain is worth it. And that's what we haven't heard yet. Or he's going to have to dial back these tariffs, because if he can't explain why this pain is worth it, the American public is not going to stick with them. And we will hear that likely from Elise Slotnick when she talks for the Democratic response right after the speech, depending on when the speech ends.
Well, as recently as 2 weeks ago, Rick, we were watching a different speech from the president at the FII Saudi Investment Forum that was taking place in Florida, where he was touting records in the stock market and a rally we were seeing in Bitcoin. A lot of that has now gone away. Does that mean he doesn't touch the markets with a 10-foot pole tonight?
I don't think so. I mean, he finds things to blame the downturn on, right? And then whenever there's an uptick, he takes credit for that. Even during the Biden administration, when the markets were on a real...
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the magnesium and zinc to boost up your immune system. Take it every day. If you're not feeling well, take a double dose. Take one in the morning, take the other in the evening. Make sure you drink it with filtered water. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off any order. Take resveratrol. Resveratrol is an antioxidant, so it's going to soak up free radicals. It helps the health of your mitochondria, so you're going to have more energy production. And resveratrol is really important to get rid of cells that are in senescence. Senesced cells are cells that stop dividing and just sit there and collect garbage. So you want to get rid of them. Take resveratrol every day. I've been taking resveratrol for decades. It stacks really well with C60, NAD+, and ubiquinol. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the resveratrol.
Zaino, thank you so much. Our signature panel will be with us throughout tonight's special coverage, so buckle up. Market jitters circling the globe, of course, after tariffs on our major trading partners went into effect today. The story may be more complicated than that, though. For more on markets, we turn to Bloomberg's Esha Day. Esha, thanks for being with us as part of our special coverage. The market seems to be speaking pretty clearly here, but now the Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick says Canada and Mexico tariffs could come off as soon as tomorrow. Does that mean we're in for a rally?
Hi, and thanks for having me on. Well, that's what the futures market apparently seem to be saying for sure. As I last checked, futures on the two main indexes that investors watch most closely.
The reason I gathered you here today is for a family strategy meeting. Johnny, after dinner, we get 30 more minutes of IXL. Timmy, let's work together on your...
More importantly, what we saw the S&P 500 do today is take away a level that investors have been watching very closely. So the S&P 500 closed down 1.2%, but it also closed below the level it was trading at before the November 5th election day. So stocks are essentially now down very slightly since Donald Trump won the election. And that is something investors have been watching very closely, because there has been this understanding that even though markets are being kind of roiled by all of this uncertainty, especially when it comes to tariffs and trade wars, this might be the level where the administration feels the need to kind of step in and can take out some of the fear that has been really disturbing the markets.
Well, so when the markets have an ear on this here on Bloomberg TV and radio tonight, Esha, other than looking for clarity around tariff policy, is there anything else they'll be watching in particular or listening for?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think the biggest thing that people want from this speech is lack of uncertainty, right? So that's definitely when it comes to tariffs, but also when it comes to geopolitics. That has been something that has been a point of a lot of uncertainty recently. Inflation is something that this administration came to power on. They campaigned hard against the high inflation, and that's something that investors, both people who are investing with money and retail investors want to be seen tackled as soon as possible. They want to get a sense that that is a fight that this administration takes seriously. And then, of course, economy. Of late, we have had a slew of economic data, and some of the sell-off that we have seen recently in equity markets has also been kind of related to that understanding that the economy kind of under the surface might be slowing down a little bit, and they want to get a sense from the president that there will be actions taken on it because tariffs is definitely something that is making the situation worse and not better.
What are you going to be watching then during the speech? They tell us, Esha, it could be the better part of 2 hours. What should investors be listening for?
Again, I think tariffs are the biggest thing. It's not like people are expecting them to come out and expecting the president to come out and give very specific understanding of how negotiations are going on, but they want to get a sense that this administration will step in and kind of take care of the fear that is really ruling the markets right now. That is actually something. And one other thing that has been big for equity investors and investors in general, especially during the campaign, and kind of a lot of investors that I speak to feel has not come up as much as they expected to, is tax reform. And that is something they want to get a sense of whether it is how committed the administration is about tax reforms at this point. They want to hear more about those parts and maybe a little less about the trade wars and the tariffs that we have been hearing.
All right, Bloomberg's Esha Day, thank you so much. As we consider everything else we may be hearing tonight,
please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and help support my work. Get the probiotics that I have. I have it in veggie cap and also in powdered form. This one is the powdered version. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the probiotics. It's really important to reduce inflammation in your gut. It's very important to improve your gut absorption for your nutrients. By reducing the inflammation in your gut, you're improving your immune system, and you're improving the communication between your gut and your liver. And your liver is a major detoxification organ, and your gut and your brain. With a good gut biome, you're gonna sleep better. You're gonna be less irritable, and not only that, research is starting to show that a good gut biome could help reduce the chances of early onset of dementia or Alzheimer's. So please, improve your gut is a major step forward in proper health and wellness, and having that ability to slowly heal your body and slow down the aging process. All right. If you're chronically inflamed, especially at the gut level, you're suppressing your immune system, and you will age faster. Your cortisol levels will be higher. If you have high cortisol levels all day long, you literally will age faster. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the probiotic. And the multivitamin that I have is an easy to digest multivitamin. And people that get older, they have to consider about how they're digesting their vitamins and minerals and all that. Vitamins and minerals are cofactors for enzymatic activity. A lot of people don't know this, that you have all these enzymes in your cell, and they need cofactors to have the correct three-dimensional conformational shape for them to perform their function. So if you don't have the right concentrations of minerals and vitamins, then you will have subpar cellular activity because your enzymes are not working as well. So it's really important to take a multivitamin every day. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and take this multivitamin. And again, a great stack, inexpensive, great stack would be taking the probiotics and taking the multivitamin, and to start on that journey of proper health. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. We are live streaming on Rumble. We're live streaming on YouTube. YouTube has the dashboard for the Asian market, and we're going to be watching that closely. Gold futures are selling off a little bit at this moment in time. And the Nikkei is trading at 37,368. And Brent crude is trading at 70.88. The S&P 500 futures are trading at 5,822. As I mentioned yesterday, well, not yesterday, it was technically this morning, but this morning, I was mentioning that there are support levels for the S&P 500 at the 5,750 level and at the 5,500 level. All right. I would not be surprised if we see the price action hit in the near term those resistance levels. So beware. Now, there is a positive correlation between Bitcoin and equity market. So obviously, the hack news had a major sell-off with Bitcoin and the ETF outflows. Now, my take on this is that there are people that have been hurt by the risk exposure that they have in equities, and they're trying to shore up some of their losses by selling their particular positions in the ETF market tied to Bitcoin. But what I suspect will happen is that as the equities do recover in the medium term, and not in the short term, but in a month or two, I wouldn't be surprised if we have some market turmoil for the next month and a half, 2 months, especially with this tariff thing. And you're going to have a suppression of Bitcoin's ETFs selling off during that period of time. But once equity starts to mean revert back and start heading upward towards to test the S&P 500 high, then you're also going to most likely see Bitcoin travel upward too. All right, we'll see what happens. That's my gut feeling on this. All right, we may be seeing Bitcoin probably is going to go down a little bit more as equities test that 5,750 and that 5,500 level. But then you'll probably see a base developed, a floor that's developed, and then Bitcoin will start to launch. Now with Bitcoin, I suspect that the news about conferences and the reserve, as a potential reserve, that will be positive, but it's not so much the news. Because if you notice, the news didn't keep Bitcoin up when Trump made the news announcement about, he would like to have it as a reserve, as a basket reserve. It didn't hold at the 94. It was trading at around 78, 79, and then it bounced up to 94 and then started selling off again. So it's not the news. The correlation is the equity market, because people are trying to shore up losses that they have exposure in the equity market. Now, people are shoring up some of those losses in the equity market by shorting oil too. All right, so there's lots that are going on, but this is my observation of this. That's my take on it. So hopefully you learned a little bit about what's going to happen in price action, but we're probably going to have some volatility, elevated VIX volatility in around the 22 to maybe even 32 price level for the VIX index, and that's going to mean that the equities are going to go down. But don't get shaken out here. What's going to happen is that the equity market is actually going to start coming back up. And this is a great period of time to start nibbling for more shares of the equity market. I'm talking about broad equity market. I don't like individual stocks because they're idiosyncratic risk, but I'm looking at the broad market here. So this is the time to start buying. All right. Now, what I think is happening with the Trump administration is that they're hitting with the tariffs. Yes, they know that it's going to be inflationary, and they know that it's going to hurt the market. Now, you have to remember that at the tail end of this year is when the tax cut bill is supposed to be pushed through. So you're going to have this, the market is going to get stressed with tariffs. The market's probably going to get stressed with some layoffs. And then all of a sudden, they're going to start pricing in the tax cut. And then the market is going to start to rally near the end of the year. And guess what? That we're going into the cycle for the midterm election for 2026. So the market is going to be rallying through that. That means it's going to be very positive. If this all plays out the way I think it is, it's going to be very positive for the Trump administration and for the Republican Party in Congress and in the Senate. And they're going to probably gain more seats. So I think that this is the grand strategy of Trump. Okay, so let me pivot over to live now.
Social media apology just based on the punitive actions the Trump administration has already taken following that Friday meeting. But look, the understanding of everyone who was at the White House on Friday was that Ukrainians will do whatever it takes to re-enter these negotiations with the White House. I think the most interesting development is actually the one we got from our own side of this debate, and it involves President Trump potentially announcing an agreement on the resources deal that was scuttled following that Oval Office dust-up between himself, Zelensky, and Vice President J.D. Vance. Now, there are conflicting reports coming out of the White House and coming out of the Trump administration. Some people say that President Trump wants to tout this as a huge win, not only in terms of his economic agenda, but also as his prowess as a peacemaker or a great unifier. That being said, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent virtually came out and said, look, these reports are not true. We have not reached a final agreement with the Ukrainians, and there will be no such announcement during the president's speech tonight. So it's certainly going to be a popcorn moment that we in the media are looking for. Is this deal finalized, or do still, additional reconciliation attempts need to be made on both sides before the I's can be dotted and the T's can be crossed on this new economic partnership?
All right, we have a lot of these Trump cabinet secretaries. They're walking into the House chamber.
Let me plug a couple more supplements, and then I'm going to try to pass the mic to Don here. He has a question. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the K2, stack it with the D3. This helps with your cardiovascular health and also your bone health. By taking D3 and K2 and calcium supplementation or drinking milk like I do and doing resistance training, you're going to build more bone density, really important when you get older, and D3 and K2 help with your cardiovascular health. So it's a dual purpose stack. So do that. Another dual purpose stack for your immune system and cardiovascular health is ashwagandha root. Ashwagandha root controls your cortisol levels and your blood glucose levels. Turmeric brings down inflammation and soaks up free radicals. And lignans, it's a powder. You take it with soft foods or with filtered water. And just take one small scoop a day. This helps your endocrine system and brings down inflammation and soaks up free radicals. This helps with your immune system, and by bringing down inflammation in your around your blood vessels, you're reducing the chances of building up plaques. So a great stack for your immune system and your cardiovascular health is the ashwagandha root, turmeric, and lignans. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5. I want these products in your hand. They work. I take them every day. Guess what? I don't look like I'm aging, and it's not because I'm a vampire. All right? No, I'm not a vampire. my anti-aging protocol works. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the turmeric, the ashwagandha, and the lignans. All right, let me pass the mic to Don quickly before the speech starts. Hello?
How you doing, Paul?
Hi.
Just listening again, I was just in another space on this guy, Oscar, who's covering the human trafficking crisis at the border. And the thing I keep coming back to is these cycles. And your talk of, again, of this redemption that's taking place, this sort of, we have to confront the evil that has sort of infiltrated a lot of our institutions as one aspect of this fight that's going on. And then you have these Overton windows you're trying to navigate for the most of these people with trying to understand current events within sort of the political framework of economics and tariffs within some type of historical context, going back to a certain point in time, but possibly not understanding all the dynamics of the use of tariffs at that point in time during these historical cycles. And I'm saying, if you look at Trump, which I would assume he's sort of operating, he's operating from a framework, in my opinion, in which he's dealing multiple fronts, of which the people, which is us, would have a hard time understanding, because you have to have some type of framework to view these things in some type of holistic manner, right? So if you don't have a framework of trying to understand of all the fronts he's dealing with, in the case of Ukraine, the cartels in Mexico, the more cartels on the border, perhaps the Chinese influence on some of the fentanyl coming even across the northern border. It's hard to wrap your head around everything, to put it into some type of context in which who it is, this enemy that we're fighting to try to defend. Again, when you and I were discussing before, this idea of preserving this experiment in self-rule, which is not the normal state of being in history. Right. So it's fascinating, like going and trying to navigate all these different problems that are going on. So you're mentioning like tariffs. Well, the tariffs, like are just almost like a blunt tool that Trump is using, that most people are not going to be able to understand exactly how he might be using it.
Exactly. Right. I think the way that Bloomberg, because Bloomberg organization is a very globalist organization, and in the literature, it's considered more under the umbrella of transnational capitalists, and they don't really care about really their country. They just care about the flow of goods and capital. They're always framing it that tariffs are going to hurt you at the in your wallet and at your kitchen table, but they don't realize that there's a bigger thing going on. For the last 35 years, I've seen nothing but manufacturing getting shipped away in the United States, and we're losing our prowess.
And the thing about that, Paul, is that if the Ricardo model of the world's done, because that assumes that you can move labor, because you don't have currency as a means to essentially balance trade, because the dollar is the fiat currency. And everybody tries to peg their currency to the dollar, and that mechanisms of balance to currency doesn't exist. So now you're like labor. Well, okay, you can't take American labor and say, well, we're competing against China. You're going to have to move to China, your blue collar workforce, and basically live over there at those labor rates. That's not going to happen. So your labor is here.
Right.
Right. So
see,
now
internally, domestically, we could do that. We can move from a high-cost state to a low-cost state.
Well, my point, Paul, is
but you can't do that at an international level.
Well, play this out into the future. At some point, the labor rates in a free market society, in a case in which there's no manipulation going on or corruption with governments, they may want that labor arbitrage and therefore not allow a middle class who essentially develop and therefore keep people in sort of a slave-like status.
Well, this is why I've been saying that there's an aristocracy that's being developed, and there's new fiefdoms that are taking place, and we're gutting the middle class. So everyone is going. The little person, we the people, are going to be nothing but serfs.
And so I think what Trump is doing essentially is playing this out into the future and saying, let's get rid of the labor arbitrage. We're going to set a base labor rate. And therefore, what is the major driver of the future of the economy? Well, it's going to be your energy cost. So what is it that basically the United States has basically been forced to adopt? Well, the Paris Climate Accords. And what is that? Well, it's to restrict our development of different energy sources. Right? So therefore, it would put us at a cost advantage of those countries that wouldn't abide by the Paris Accord. So you asked the question, our biggest trade competitor is China. Do you think China is going to listen to Greta Thunberg?
No, of course not.
So therefore, they're going to do virtual signaling among the elites who are sitting in the gated communities to develop the policies that undermine the working class, which essentially develops into the middle class, which is sort of our defender of liberty, which has always been.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that Trump's move is trying to undo the negative externalities of NAFTA. What I saw happen in automotive when NAFTA was
Ross Perot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what Ross Perot said, we're going to be, making potato chips and not microchips. Well, and for the last 35 years, Taiwan's been making microchips, and we've been subsidizing big ag for our agriculture. But what I remember being in automotive and seeing, the slow deflating of the automotive industry in Detroit, that was all NAFTA. And it started with Tool and Die going to Windsor, Canada. So I don't feel bad for the Canadians at all. I do not feel bad at all.
Think about this. I know about this too, because we're in the automotive industry as well. It went to China. Why? Because of currency. They devalued their currency.
See, when I was seeing this happen in automotive, this is the 90s. All right. So the move to China, the big move to China, took place with Bush Jr., and that happened right after 2000.
And I would say, to argue a little bit before that, that was actually when 1996, well, Bush Sr. allowed him into the World Trade Organization without any stipulations. Then 1996, Clinton and Rubin allowed them to take their currency to the dollar, devalued by 40%, plus the VAT tax of over, I think it was like 20%.
Yeah, but back then, back then, you probably didn't have that many tier 2s, tier 3s that you can rely on as suppliers for automotive in China.
I agree with you, Paul. I'm just saying I know firsthand on this one as well. What was happening was they were infiltrating into McKinsey. They were infiltrating into all these. You had Bush Sr. doing multiple deals in China with these.
That totally makes sense, because you'll have a consultant group come in to an OEM and say, well, we can cut your cost by X amount if you do this. And so those were the wizards, the wizards of transnational capitalism.
The CEOs are off the hook because McKinsey told me. And that's what we saw. That's what we saw happening. And I'm telling you, it was also in the elite institutions as well. They were talking about free trade and pushing it, as if there's no consequences for this policy.
I just saw it just destroy the automotive industry in Detroit, and what I saw was the movement to Windsor, and then shortly after that, it was the movement of larger plants to Mexico, and then the technology transfer to India. So, you still there? I think I lost you. I'm not sure what happened to Don. Well, while I'm waiting for Don to come back online, I'm not sure what happened. But let me plug a couple products here before we start. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Myotrol. Myotrol is a great way to build muscle and to maintain muscle. It helps with gene expression to build the muscle and to maintain the muscle and help with the mitochondrial health. So please go to my store and get the Myotrol. Let me bring back Don here. He went away and then came back here. All right, you're back.
Can you hear me now, Paul?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. I said there's a couple good books, and I think Jim Rickards is one that probably is best articulated the positions that we're talking about. And I find it, he's actually said he's been involved in wargaming as well.
Yeah, I bought his Currency Wars book a long time ago. He's written like 5 or 6 books, but I've read the Currency Wars.
Right, in The Road to Ruin, and he's talking about the monetary reset that probably is coming, of which most economists are not expecting it, and I don't know why. If you look at historical trends, each empire reaches sort of a limit, and they eventually the fiat their status as holding the fiat currency shifts, right? So he's saying it's coming, and then the question is, what does that look like during that monetary reset?
Right.
And so there are all these cycles at play, and he's bringing in, if you look at it, he's bringing in also chaos theory, and a lot of these things that are being built up into the system and how they will manifest. And on top of that, he says he's been working with the U.S. government in wargaming in Carlisle to try to basically come up with a simulation as to how to best position the United States to come out on top in the event of some type of monetary reset.
And that may be, creating some sort of basket of cryptocurrencies. I find it fascinating how it's emerging, where cryptocurrencies may actually be assets that the Federal Reserve will be buying soon. I mean, if someone asked me that 5 years ago or even 2 years ago, I would have said, no way would that happen. But it's looking like it's moving in that direction.
But I don't understand the cryptos from the standpoint when you look back at major historical times in the case of like Andrew Jackson, and this comes back to the central bank. It's if you look at sort of the things that are being teased into the conversation, it's, well, we need to audit the Fed, we need to audit the gold, right? So they're teasing out some type of idea that for the most part, why can't we go back from the Treasury printing directly money versus actually using the Federal Reserve through a debt instrument? Because I think what this is, one of the other person I'm finding is that they said, well, if we create debt, we felt at some point in time that debt would become a restriction on the money creation. And what they're saying is that was true up to a certain point in time, that they wouldn't accept debt essentially as collateral for trades. So once that happened, now debt has just become money that pays interest. And so then we're back to this moment where, why don't we just go back for money just being printed directly from the Treasury? Mm-hmm. And I think we're at that moment, going back to looking at the Constitution of the Founding Fathers about what is constitutional money.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, like I said, with artificial intelligence and blockchain, where you can get real-time POS data, then you would be able to adjust the monetary supply in real time. And that can come out of the Treasury Department and not the Federal Reserve.
And that's what I'm saying. It seems like now the problem will be, there seems to be a growing collapse in confidence in our public institutions, right? So it seems to me now would be the time, if you're a group that's trying to arrest control from the finance industry, and if you look at it, it's the finance and government that seems to be now a large proportion of our GDP, and so what you're looking at, what the Doge is uncovering, the amount of inefficiencies and waste in the government is at a point where we need to get back, and even finance with AI, we got to go back to actually making real things again.
Exactly.
Somewhere along the lines, the financialization of our economy, which Schumpeter warned us about, right? He talked about the success of capitalism would undermine, it's actually its success.
Exactly.
Because people would forget what is the wealth creating generator of what underpins our freedom.
Right. No, I totally agree with you on this. Totally. Yep.
And actually, if you poll the American people, the Gallups is saying the number one, where do people trust? What are the institutions that people trust now? It's small business, which I find fascinating. So you're seeing a collapse in the public institutions, a redirecting of that confidence into these small businesses because they're connected on the ground and they have more of a high fidelity feedback loop to the wealth that they're creating, that it actually is a product that actually the public may want.
Mm-hmm. And that's the reason why I keep on saying that, it's the end of globalization and it's the start of localization.
And for that standpoint, I think what Trump's doing, he's saying, look, this is where it's headed. We're looking at trading region. If China wants to basically sell a product, they're going to basically produce it in the trading zone. We're not going to send them raw materials over to China. China's going to do the value add and then send it back over to here to sell the States. That's a ridiculous supply chain. If they want to create a product, they're going to manufacture it in the trading zone, and we'll have a base labor rate.
Right.
So we're not going to have this manipulation of this labor arbitrage anymore, and we're not going to have this idea of a fiat currency in the case of the U.S.
But what has happened in the investor community, I'll call them the Bloombergs. The Bloombergs, they for the last 35 years, they positioned themselves that they were going to go to infinity with transnational capitalists, transnational capitalism. So they're going to have to they're worried about their positions because there's this crack in the system now that Trump has created.
Or Paul, this is, I think, in the case of what I think Elon and Trump are teasing out when Trump went to the world, what he went to the UN or what he dropped back out of the Paris Accords, or back to the WHO, or saying that we're moving into a multipolar world. That might be very different than the one that Bloomberg was actually looking towards. So in the case of Bloomberg, perhaps the idea of the World Economic Forum, in which there might be this idea of a one world government, of which you will own nothing and be happy, might be sort of this idea of a socialist or a communist sort of, and at least a fascist and totalitarian state of existence that is not the same as what, say, Trump, Elon may be presenting in a multipolar world of trading zones, of countries having their own sovereignty, issuing their own currency. It's much harder to control.
Right.
And they may think that type of is not the way the world needs.
Well, I think we're starting to see an unraveling, not completely, but a partial unraveling of liberalization of markets during Thatcher and Reagan. Trump is unraveling what was instituted in the 80s. Now, he's not going to unravel it completely, but he's trying to undo. He's trying to undo some of this over build out in the globalization through market liberalization through the Thatcher and Reagan era.
And Paul, the big thing that I see, if he's truly doing this, is the cycles would say that when this time comes, when you have a collapse in these public institutions and you're seeing these sovereign debt crises emerge, the cycle would say they will go to war.
Mm-hmm.
And so now if Trump starts to take away the side of these avenues for them to basically distract people by creating a new war, then now it's going to be looking at those people that have basically been creating these endless wars and understanding maybe how they would benefit from this endless war arrangement. And so if he takes away the Ukraine war, he takes away Iran-Israel war, he takes away all these other wars, now people are starting to look at their institutions saying, who the hell's been benefiting from this arrangement? Because it makes no sense anymore, because we're seeing that perhaps these people are part of these criminal syndicates that don't represent the best interests of humanity. Right. Which is that moment you're talking about, the East, the Esau, Edom. We're going to uncover the corruption, and once we do, the world looks a lot different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Or it's the same, example with, I think it was Alive, the movie. I think it was with the Roddy Piper.
Right.
So, where if you have the sunglasses, you can actually see the reality. But, no, for sure. But, we're living in some very interesting times, and I will never see anything like this again.
I like this guy's talking about the border crisis. Scott Oscar. I mean, I don't understand why, especially like women on the Democratic side, wouldn't think that the border crisis is probably the number one crisis regarding the threat to like just women in the world.
Right. Well, women and children. Yeah. No,
women and children. Absolutely. Right. The most vulnerable are basically caught in this and who is these narco trafficking networks and then who's financing it's why we can't unravel this quickly. And why is that Trump has had to bring awareness to this? Because the guy's saying that literally the human trafficking movement in Panama has been shut down by 95%. 95% since he took office.
Right.
Yeah. That would be, you would think the whole country, especially women, would be celebrating. But there's nothing. There's like nothing.
The Democratic Party is turning to be, just hollow, selfish. They're about, corruption and, just, it's all about power and how I phrase it with, minorities, keeping them on the urban plantation. And they want them to vote in a certain block to make sure that they have, they get that vote for the Democratic Party. And people need to wake up.
And I think that he mentioned about the media, because the New York Times has failed to mention the crisis, sort of. And when you find that Carlos Slim is sitting on the board of the New York Times, and that perhaps he's benefited from the PRI in Mexico, and so there's this whole corruption of the media, and it's exposure of the corruption to the people is being manipulated, that it's not seen as a crisis yet until it hit home. And even then, when it hits home, they still can't believe it about who might be behind this epidemic that we're seeing, the fentanyl.
Right.
They just can't wrap their head around it, I guess.
No, you're right. We'll see. What happens. They're going to get ready for Trump to enter. So I'm gonna put you on pause, and then if you don't mind, Don, and then listen in here, and then when he's walking around, I'll put you back online before he starts the speech, and then we'll cover it live.
Part of the House to escort the President of the United States into the chamber, the following: the gentleman from Louisiana, Mr. Scalise; the gentleman from Minnesota, Mr. Emmer; the gentlewoman from Michigan, Mrs. McClain; the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Hudson; the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Reschenthaler; the gentleman from Utah, Mr. Moore; the gentlewoman from Indiana, Mrs. Houchin; the gentleman from Oklahoma, Mr. Hearn; the gentleman from New York, Mr. Jeffries; the gentlewoman from Massachusetts, Ms. Clark; the gentleman from California, Mr. Aguilar; the gentleman from California, Mr. Liu; the gentleman from Colorado, Mr. Neguse; the gentlewoman from Washington, Ms. Delbene; the gentlewoman from Michigan, Mrs. Dingell.
The President of the Senate, at the direction of that body, appoints the following senators as members of the committee on the part of the Senate to escort the President of the United States into the House chamber: The senator from South Dakota, Mr. Thune. The senator from Wyoming, Mr. Barrasso. The senator from Arkansas, Mr. Cotton. The senator from Oklahoma, Mr. Langford. The senator from West Virginia, Mrs. Capito. The senator from South Carolina, Mr. Scott. The senator from New York, Mr. Schumer. The senator from Illinois, Mr. Durbin. The senator from Minnesota, Ms. Klobuchar. The senator from New Jersey, Mr. Booker. The senator from Wisconsin, Ms. Baldwin.
The members of the escort committee will exit the chamber through the lobby doors.
Okay, as we're waiting for them to walk Trump in here, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the ubiquinol, help support my work and these live streams that I'm doing twice a day. Get the ubiquinol. This is the most bioavailable form of CoQ10 that you can get. It's also an antioxidant, so it's going to soak up free radicals, and it helps to protect your neurons. NAD plus boosts up energy levels. It also helps to heal your DNA damage in your cellular DNA or your mitochondrial DNA. And NAD plus also helps to protect your neurons. It's a great stack with ubiquinol. And lastly, NAC I've added to my stack to boost up my glutathione levels. Glutathione soaks up free radicals. It's another very strong antioxidant. NAC also helps to detoxify your liver and your kidney. NAC helps with lung health, and NAC helps to calm the central nervous system and reduce anxiety. All right. I don't know, Don, if you want to come back online before Trump steps in.
I just want to say back to this Oscar who was covering the border crisis, because we were talking about the success of Bukele, and he was talking about it again in terms of fighting these narco trafficking cartels, and this person who said that they left the cartels due to sort of the satanic influence. And this was an interview with Tucker Carlson, which goes back to like talking about this connection to the divine again, and in the end, perhaps that God wins. Because when I look at, say, someone like Trump, the idea is out of chaos, order out of chaos. If the idea is this idea of subverting, again, free will, I do think that we're basically trying to defend free will, freedom, liberty, which is this experiment the United States is conducting right now, that we're trying to preserve it. So what Trump is trying to do essentially is not allow the chaos, but to create an alternative order to the one that's being presented by the World Economic Forum, where you own nothing and be happy. He's preventing the chaos, which that's what I'm saying. It seems like he's stopping a timeline of events and presenting an alternative reality, of which, if there's enough people who agree to it, then the people will actually gravitate towards it and reach a critical mass where the chaos will not happen.
Interesting. See, I see it a little differently. I see it as like almost a molecule, where like three molecules are together or can be assembled together, and that you can create some sort of different charges, and there's a chaos between the charges. And so there's this New World Order molecule, then you have the Trump molecule, and then you have us, our current status or us. And depending on which molecule wins out in the chaos depends on this new configuration of the molecule. But I have to think a little bit more about that.
I see the founding fathers like trying to find these first order principles to preserve the experiment in liberty. And that's what's happening, is that the Hegelian dialectic would be put in play, in that the people that would want to subvert the experiment would want to not allow people to rediscover this first order principles, and it would collapse back into a system in which they would use technology for people to actually enjoy or love their servitude, much like Huxley talked about this also.
Well, I'll tell you, with using AI in a positive way, I think it really promotes first order principles.
Well, I think it may. Like I said, I don't think the prosperity and the ability of like unlimited potential has to do with degrees of freedom that exist in a person being able to think freely. Like there's new discoveries and so forth come out of people being able to think independently, because de Tocqueville talked about this. One of the biggest threats that he said that he looked at in America would be this idea of conforming to the crowds, right? Going back to the Milgram experiment, that there's some inherent tendency to conform to the crowds, and that would be perhaps an Achilles heel.
Right.
So how do you construct a government in such a way that it preserves the individual pursuit of whatever it is they think without being constrained by wanting to conform, which you sometimes, it comes back to, like, again, the cultural norms of the society that the government or any type of it can really enforce. It's each individual has to be able to believe that they can think freely and know that they're acting freely. Which I say that technology you may think that you're acting freely, but you're actually being driven into your own prison if you're not aware.
Well, that's why I said using AI in the right way. AI is dangerous. It's a double-edged sword. You can use it in nefariously, or you can it can be used as a.
Well, to your point about, like, so going back to the first order principles, they would do no harm unto others and do not encroach upon other people's property. Okay, well, those are the first order principles. Then you move out and see what emergent behavior comes from that. So as long as you don't violate those first order principles, it would move, and you would think it would grow the pie for everyone. But there may come a point in time where how do you say that people get a hold of these power structures, because you have to at some point organize you have to organize people together in some type of means and agree upon whatever those rules are, that you create a governmental structure which is force. But you have to understand that governmental force may become susceptible to human nature, but as long as you're aware that exists, then it never violates those first order principles, then you're fine. And I think we're at a point in time, perhaps we found out that our governmental structures have been corrupted and they're now violating these first order principles, and they're collapsing back to that. It's a question of whether or not we rediscover that and what it means to defend that at all costs.
Right. Yeah.
And that's where it's this complex dynamic. The energies to sustain the corruption is collapsing. That people become, it's like we're saying, like Trump and Doge, they're saying billions and billions are going out, and you can't sustain it. There's no production.
What's so ironic is how the Democratic Party seems to dig in and try to defend those wasteful spendings.
Because that's what Shumter said. Shumter said this. He said that as long as you continue to fund the government, which is worse because that's where zero interest rates now. Who's the biggest borrower? It's the government. But it's over. It's got to collapse. So when it collapses, what do? They go to war.
Well, Trump said that he was going to do fireworks during the speech today. So I wonder if he's really going to let it all out.
I think he's going to say we're getting out of these wars, and if he says we're getting out of the wars, there's no escape hatch for this corrupt criminal syndicates to continue the game. Right. There's no distraction. We're done. The wars are over.
All right. So Melania just stepped in to the peanut gallery there. I don't know. I feel I feel that we're moving in the right direction with the country, but we're going to be going through tumultuous times. It's not going to be a cakewalk. It's, there's going to be some.
Well, absolutely,
some pain,
Paul. Like I said, let's say what happens. This is the point. If we have an EMP event and everything has to reset, the question is, what is the culture at that point in time to reform?
Well, if we don't go back to Judaic Christian, ethics, we're going to be in trouble.
So this is what Oscar was saying. The same thing about Bukhari. They have to go back. He's saying about this, it's Satan versus, these gangs are using satanic worship. And the only way to combat that is go back to some understanding of God. And then what is God about? It's God would be about defending these first order principles, do no harm unto others, and do not encroach on other people's property. It's like it's going to collapse, and we better be prepared for difficult times to reform it. What
I was talking to a lawyer, just happened to be talking to him, and we were talking about what's going on around the country, and he was saying that there are many people that are minorities that are not paying their rent on purpose across the country. And what's, and that's, it's almost like they're trying to, they feel as though they should be taking from society or taking from people because they're losing out. It's almost like it's back
to 1776 overtaxation. I think you're back to that idea of like, what is it we're funding, especially say your taxpayer dollars are on USAID to send over Sean Penn to Ukraine for $8 million. I mean, what are we doing? Sending condoms to whatever to Hamas. I mean, we're seeing a ridiculousness of it that the American people are saying, what are my taxes going to?
Well, there's overtaxing that's going on, but there's another problem that's happening is there's a lack of ethics within the country. There are a group of people. I'm not trying to, put everybody in a bucket, certain groups into a bucket and just be too general. But the reality is that there are different minorities that are actually trying to game the system in such a way where they're using the courts and not meeting their legal obligations. And if you have a easy court system within your, in your community or in your state, then these people that are gaming the system will win out versus the ones that are, they use that. What's happening is that these minorities are not meeting their contract obligations.
Well,
so what happens is it's literally almost like a soft reparations, not a hard reparations. It's a soft reparations, and it's being promoted within the judicial branch. They're being easy on these people that aren't paying their rent. If this is happening across the country, not just locally, but across the country, that there's someone is telling them to do this. I'm tiptoeing on this, but I'll just flat out state it. BLM, and the Black community, there are many of them that are playing a game with the judicial system, trying to suck money from people that are landlords, and they're doing it on purpose. Don.
And I'm saying, Paul, that the one thing that I'm saying as well, though, if you look at housing, and let's just start, again, first order principles, you have to have a moral society which is based on a strong family, but again, the connections to divine, that's all been destroyed. I just had someone in my car, I drove home, who basically, again, the father's not in the household. The mother is basically the one supporting him, who's 20. He doesn't have a job, but she's pressuring him to get the job, but he doesn't speak English. So you have this, and then the question is there a wage because of globalization of which they can support themselves and the family, right? And then you have the distraction of social media, and then the drugs and the fentanyl and the entertainment. All of these things going against American culture.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you have a rationalization that's happening at the elite status, these people in the gated communities, which want open borders and don't understand the consequences of open border crisis.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like this complete chaos, in which when you talk to this kid, when I was having him, he's like, I want to have money so that I can take my girlfriend out for a date, and I don't feel like she has to pay. Like he's feeling the guilt, but it's not. There's nothing. There's no social ties or interactions or connections. They're all broken. You can just, I see it.
I think it just boils down to God, country, and family. You know,
Yeah,
those three principles.
That's why I say it's like it's breaking down to that. And let's just say the government goes away. Now we got it like a self-organizing collective. Back to 1776. How do we organize ourselves all over again? We're going to have to rediscover those principles.
Yeah, that's true. But the problem is that you got a big section of society that couldn't even tell you that there are three branches of government.
Well, there's like I said, I think there's multiple vectors of chaos at play with people before probably could make their own food. They'd have garden. There was some level of self independence.
What I have seen in the devolving of New York City is just that there's a lack of regard for the rule of law, and that ever since that whole BLM riot stuff, that it's even worse. There's a lack of regard, not just for the rule of law, for just life in general. And people will steal, people will take from, people will set people on fire. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, there's just, it's.
But think about when you think about that, I think like you're saying, it seems like it's been constructed to create the chaos, because the idea is all the social institutions are all been destroyed. So then you have a solution like you're describing, where you go through these organizations that are saying that are then telling them what to do, that are not in the interest of preserving liberty, but actually ushering in chaos and a more draconian sort of lockdown society, and a solution that undermines the idea of the self-organizing collective to figure it out.
Right.
Because the self-organized, it will be messy. But if you believe in humanity, and then
what will happen is you have all these people that are just, they don't have the ethics, and they're not law abiding. Once we reset, or we go through this transition and we reset to a more ethical society, a more law-abiding society, these people will be punished. They're going to be ostracized socially, and then they're going to be punished by the judicial system. Right now, we've been too soft on this, and there are groups. There are groups and institutions that are promoting the chaos,
and on top
to break
of that,
the law, to break laws, to make the society just unethical.
And the social pressure, it's in the family. You would pressure your children. You need to be productive citizens.
Well, here's a story that you didn't know. All right, when my brother had his child, he's waiting in the waiting room, while his wife is, giving birth. I don't think my brother was in the actual, in the room when she was getting birth. But the thing is that he was sitting in the waiting room, and he was listening to. This was in Detroit. This is in the Detroit area. So he was listening to other families that were in the waiting room, that were waiting for the delivery, and some of them were black, and I don't want to make it sound like I'm anti-black, because I'm not. But the thing is that he literally heard people talking, like an elderly black woman talking to the family members. Oh, this is how you game the system. You apply for this and you do that, and and it's like, why not just have just God, country, and family in the life of the newborn, and have them learn and move forward and try to be a productive citizen to the best of their ability, instead of trying to game the system. They're literally right before they're born. The parents are being told by their elders on how to game the system. This is the problem. Now, this is in downtown Detroit. Now, I assume something similar is happening in New York. This is a problem in America. This lack, they think that gaming the system is the way to prosperity. It's the wrong way to do it.
And Paul, my thing is, if you allow it to play out over
All
time,
right, Don,
collapses.
we have to cut off here because Trump's walking in. I apologize, but let's go to Trump here. Okay, Don, if you want to come back on, and once he's on at the podium, then we'll cut off. But if you want to come back on to speak, go ahead.
Yeah. It's interesting. There's a guy that I follow. This guy Mayberry. He talks about this. He actually mentions this guy Gladstone, and he mentions and this is talking about in his time that he was a stutterer of the Jefferson and so forth, and he's saying that he was able to do it because much of the population and a substantial number of influential leaders were on his side. They had read the works of Smith and the American founders and understood how the system of liberty works. He says, in other words, Gladstone was operating in a country in which most of the consciousness raising had already been done. And then Marbury's making the statement, we are not so lucky. Raised in government-controlled schools, nearly all of us were taught to be statists, and not 1 in 1,000 knows anything about the fundamental principles of common law. And we've been coasting on ideological momentum for more than a century. And if the Constitution were erased, we'd have little chance of reviving, except for Rand Paul and Ron Paul he mentions. There's probably no one in the federal government who embraces the original spirit of the American system. And I kind of think that's where we are that you're mentioning. Like, we've all forgotten that original dialectic that was going on to create a content around preserving the experiment. And if it goes away, I'm not too sure everybody knows exactly what would go away.
See, I think with Gen X, we were straddling. We were right in between. We were like sandwiched in between what was going on in public school. We had a little bit of what it was like to be educated pre-personal computer, and so it was a little bit closer to the baby boomers. But then we later, for me at least, it was around it was probably 6th grade when I had my first personal computer. It was the Commodore 64. So going into junior high school and high school, that's the beginnings of the computer age, right? At least in education. I remember the Apple II being rolled on a cart into 5th grade. But, so the point I'm making is that I think Gen X is like that last generation that actually had the right ethics and the right public school education, at least good enough to be able to have this God, country, and family concept. I mean, I remember having to stand up and do the, saluting the flag and doing the national anthem. But Trump's at the podium now, Don. So I'm gonna switch over to live now here.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's a great honor. Thank you very much. Speaker Johnson, Vice President Vance, the First Lady of the United States, members of the United States Congress, thank you very much. And to my fellow citizens, America is back. 6 weeks ago, I stood beneath the dome of this Capitol and proclaimed the dawn of the golden age of America. From that moment on, it has been nothing but swift and unrelenting action to usher in the greatest and most successful era in the history of our country. We have accomplished more in 43 days than most administrations accomplished in 4 years or 8 years, and we are just getting started. I return to this chamber tonight to report that America's momentum is back, our spirit is back, our pride is back, our confidence is back, and the American dream is surging bigger and better than ever before. The American dream is unstoppable, and our country is on the verge of a comeback, the likes of which the world has never witnessed and perhaps will never witness again. Never been anything like it. The presidential election of November 5th was a mandate like has not been seen in many decades. We won all 7 swing states, giving us an electoral college victory of 312 votes. We won the popular vote by big numbers and won counties in our country. In one counties in our country, 2,700 to 525, on a map that reads almost completely red for Republican. Now, for the first time in modern history, more Americans believe that our country is headed in the right direction than the wrong direction. In fact, it's an astonishing record, 27-point swing, the most ever. Small business optimism saw its single largest one-month gain ever recorded, a 41-point jump.
Members are directed to uphold and maintain the quorum in the House and to cease any further disruptions. That's your warning.
He's going to get thrown out.
Members are engaging in willful and continuing breach of the quorum, and the chair is prepared to direct the Sergeant at Arms to restore order to the joint session.
This is I'm going to be really quick. This is a microcosm of what is happening internally with this country. There is a battle that's happening, and then it's like we were saying with Don. It's about proper decorum and rule of law. We're seeing the battle right in Congress.
Mr. Green, take your seat. Take your seat, sir. Take your seat.
And here, what I was saying was, this is an individual is black. I'm telling you, so there's something bigger
Sergeant at Arms
happening.
to restore order.
Yep. There's a move. You're damn right. Bye-bye. So what it is that he makes a disruption. He's pushing this BLM bullshit, and the thing is that the other side of the aisle is screaming USA to drown it out. This is a microcosm of what's happening in America.
Members are directed to uphold and maintain the quorum in the House. Mr. President, you continue.
Thank you. Over the past 6 weeks, I have signed nearly 100 executive orders and taken more than 400 executive actions, a record to restore common sense, safety, optimism, and wealth all across our wonderful land. The people elected me to do the job, and I'm doing it. In fact, it has been stated by many that the first month of our presidency, it's our presidency, is the most successful in the history of our nation. By many. And what makes it even more impressive is that, do you know who number 2 is? George Washington. How about that? I don't know about that list, but we'll take it. Within hours of taking the oath of office, I declared a national emergency on our southern border, and I deployed the U.S. military and Border Patrol to repel the invasion of our country. And what a job they've done. As a result, illegal border crossings last month were by far the lowest ever recorded, ever. They heard my words and they chose not to come. Much easier that way. In comparison, under Joe Biden, the worst president in American history, there were hundreds of thousands of illegal crossings a month. And virtually all of them, including murderers, drug dealers, gang members, and people from mental institutions and insane asylums, were released into our country. Who would want to do that? This is my 5th such speech to Congress. And once again, I look at the Democrats in front of me, and I realize there is absolutely nothing I can say to make them happy, or to make them stand or smile or applaud. Nothing I can do. I could find a cure to the most devastating disease, a disease that would wipe out entire nations, or announce the answers to the greatest economy in history, or the stoppage of crime to the lowest levels ever recorded. And these people sitting right here will not clap, will not stand, and certainly will not cheer for these astronomical achievements. They won't do it, no matter what. Five times I've been up here. It's very sad, and it just shouldn't be this way. So Democrats sitting before me, for just this one night, why not join us in celebrating so many incredible wins for America?
Because they don't want,
for the good of
they
our
don't want
nation,
America to win.
let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
Nancy Pelosi just looked like she shit her pants.
Administration is fighting to deliver the change America needs to bring a future that America deserves, and we're doing it. This is a time for big dreams and bold action. Upon taking office, I imposed an immediate freeze on all federal hiring, a freeze on all new federal regulations, and a freeze on all foreign aid. I terminated the ridiculous Green New Scam. I withdrew from the unfair Paris Climate Accord, which was costing us trillions of dollars that other countries were not paying. I withdrew from the corrupt World Health Organization. And I also withdrew from the anti-American UN Human Rights Council. We ended all of Biden's environmental restrictions that were making our country far less safe and totally unaffordable. And importantly, we ended the last administration's insane electric vehicle mandate, saving our auto workers and companies from economic destruction. To unshackle our economy, I have directed that for every one new regulation, 10 old regulations must be eliminated, just like I did in my very successful first term. And in that first term, we set records on ending unnecessary rules and regulations like no other president had done before. We ordered all federal workers to return to the office. They will either show up for work in person or be removed from their job. And we've ended weaponized government where, as an example, a sitting president is allowed to viciously prosecute his political opponent, like me. How did that work out? Not too good. Not too good. And I've stopped all government censorship and brought back free speech in America. It's back. Two days ago, I signed an order making English the official language of the United States of America. I renamed the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America.
I mean, the Democrats can't applaud for anything. It's amazing.
I renamed for a great president, William McKinley, Mount McKinley again. Beautiful Alaska. Love Alaska. We've ended the tyranny of so-called diversity, equity, and inclusion policies all across the entire federal government and indeed the private sector and our military. And our country will be woke no longer. We believe that whether you are a doctor, an accountant, a lawyer, or an air traffic controller, you should be hired and promoted based on skill and competence, not race or gender. Very important. You should be hired based on merit. And the Supreme Court, in a brave and very powerful decision, has allowed us to do so. Thank you. Thank you very much. We have removed the poison of critical race theory from our public schools, and I signed an order making it the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female. I also signed an executive order to ban men from playing in women's sports. Three years ago, Peyton McNabb was an all-star high school athlete, one of the best, preparing for a future in college sports. But when her girls' volleyball match was invaded by a male, he smashed the ball so hard in Peyton's face, causing traumatic brain injury, partially paralyzing her right side and ending her athletic career. It was a shot like she's never seen before. She's never seen anything like it. Peyton is here tonight in the gallery, and Peyton, from now on, schools will kick the men off the girls' team, or they will lose all federal funding.
About time. Yep.
And if you really want to see numbers, just take a look at what happened in the women's boxing, weightlifting, track and field, swimming, or cycling, where a male recently finished a long-distance race 5 hours and 14 minutes ahead of a woman for a new record by 5 hours. Broke the record by 5 hours. It's demeaning for women, and it's very bad for our country. We're not going to put up with it any longer. What I have just described is only a small fraction of the common sense revolution that is now, because of us, sweeping the entire world. Common sense has become a common theme, and we will never go back. Never. Never going to let that happen. Among my very highest priorities is to rescue our economy and get dramatic and immediate relief to working families. As you know, we inherited from the last administration an economic catastrophe and an inflation nightmare. Their policies drove up energy prices, pushed up grocery costs, and drove the necessities of life out of reach for millions and millions of Americans. They've never had anything like it. We suffered the worst inflation in 48 years, but perhaps even in the history of our country, they're not sure. As president, I'm fighting every day to reverse this damage and make America affordable again. Joe Biden especially let the price of eggs get out of control. The egg price is out of control. And we're working hard to get it back down. Secretary, do a good job on that. You inherited a total mess from the previous administration. Do a good job. A major focus of our fight to defeat inflation is rapidly reducing the cost of energy. The previous administration cut the number of new oil and gas leases by 95%, slowed pipeline construction to a halt, and closed more than 100 power plants. We are opening up many of those power plants right now. And frankly, we have never seen anything like it. That's why on my first day in office, I declared a national energy emergency. As you've heard me say many times, we have more liquid gold under our feet than any nation on earth, and by far. And now I fully authorize the most talented team ever assembled to go and get it. It's called Drill, Baby, Drill. My administration is also working on a gigantic natural gas pipeline in Alaska, among the largest in the world, where Japan, South Korea, and other nations want to be our partner with investments of trillions of dollars each. There's never been anything like that one. It will be truly spectacular. It's all set to go. The permitting is gotten. And later this week, I will also take historic action to dramatically expand production of critical minerals and rare earths here in the USA. To further combat inflation, we will not only be reducing the cost of energy, but we'll be ending the flagrant waste of taxpayer dollars. And to that end, I have created the brand new Department of Government Efficiency. GOES. Perhaps you've heard of it. Which is headed by Elon Musk, who is in the gallery tonight. Thank you, Elon. He's working very hard. He didn't need this. He didn't need this. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Everybody here, even this side, appreciates it, I believe. They just don't want to admit that. Just listen to some of the appalling waste we have already identified.
Here we go.
$22 billion from HHS to provide free housing and cars for illegal aliens. $45 million for diversity, equity, and inclusion scholarships in Burma. $40 million to improve the social and economic inclusion of sedentary migrants. Nobody knows what that is. $8 $8 million to promote LGBTQI+ in the African nation of Lesotho, which nobody has ever heard of. $60 million for indigenous peoples and Afro-Colombian empowerment in Central America. $60 million. $8 million for making mice transgender. This is real. $32 million for a left-wing propaganda operation in Moldova. $10 million for male circumcision in Mozambique. $20 million for the Arab Sesame Street in the Middle East. It's a program. $20 million for a program. $1.9 billion to recently created Decarbonization of Homes Committee, headed up, and we know she's involved. Just at the last moment, the money was passed over by a woman named Stacey Abrams. Have you ever heard of her? A $3.5 million consulting contract for lavish fish monitoring. $1.5 million for voter confidence in Liberia. $14 million for social cohesion in Mali. $59 million for illegal alien hotel rooms in New York City. He's a real estate developer. He's done very well. $250,000 to increase vegan local climate action innovation in Zambia. $42 million for social and behavior change in Uganda. $14 million for improving public procurement in Serbia. $47 million for improving learning outcomes in Asia. Asia's doing very well with learning. You know what we're doing. We should use it ourselves. $101 million for DEI contracts at the Department of Education. The most ever paid, nothing even like it. Under the Trump administration, all of these scams, and they're far worse, but I didn't think it was appropriate to talk about them. They're so bad. Many more have been found out and exposed and swiftly terminated by a group of very intelligent, mostly young people, headed up by Elon, and we appreciate it. We found hundreds of billions of dollars of fraud. We've taken back the money and reduced our debt to fight inflation and other things. Taken back a lot of that money. We got it just in time. This is just the beginning. The Government Accountability Office, the federal government office, has estimated annual fraud of over $500 billion in our nation, and we are working very hard to stop it. We're going to. We're also identifying shocking levels of incompetence and probable fraud in the Social Security program for our seniors, and that our seniors and people that we love rely on. Believe it or not, government databases list 4.7 million Social Security members from people aged 100 to 109 years old. It lists 3.6 million people from ages 110 to 119. I don't know any of them. I know some people that are rather elderly, but not quite that elderly. 3.47 million people from ages 120 to 129. 3.9 million people from ages 130 to 139. 3.5 million people from ages 140 to 149. And money is being paid to many of them. And we're searching right now. In fact, Pam, good luck. Good luck. You're going to find it. But a lot of money is paid out to people because it just keeps getting paid and nobody does. And it really hurts Social Security. It hurts our country. 1.3 million people from ages 150 to 159, and over 130,000 people, according to the Social Security databases, are age over 160 years old. We have a healthier country than I thought, Bobby. Including, to finish, 1,039 people between the ages of 220 and 229. One person between the age of 240 and 249, and one person is listed at 360 years of age. More than 100 years older than our country. But we're going to find out where that money's going. And it's not going to be pretty. By slashing all of the fraud, waste, and theft we can find, we will defeat inflation, bring down mortgage rates, lower car payments and grocery prices, protect our seniors, and put more money in the pockets of American families. And today, interest rates took a beautiful drop, big, beautiful drop. It's about time. And in the near future, I want to do what has not been done in 24 years, balance the federal budget. We're going to balance it. With that goal in mind, we have developed in great detail what we are calling the Gold Card, which goes on sale very, very soon. For $5 million, we will allow the most successful job-creating people from all over the world to buy a path to U.S. citizenship. It's like the green card, but better and more sophisticated. And these people will have to pay tax in our country. They won't have to pay tax from where they came. The money that they've made, you wouldn't want to do that, but they have to pay tax, create jobs. They'll also be taking people out of colleges and paying for them so that we can keep them in our country instead of having them being forced out. Number one, at the top school, as an example, being forced out and not being allowed to stay and create tremendous numbers of jobs and great success for a company out there. So while we take out the criminals, killers, traffickers, and child predators who are allowed to enter our country under the open border policy of these people, the Democrats, the Biden administration, the open border insane policies that you've allowed to destroy our country, we will now bring in brilliant, hardworking, job-creating people. They're going to pay a lot of money, and we're going to reduce our debt with that money. Americans have given us a mandate for bold and profound change. For nearly 100 years, the federal bureaucracy has grown until it has crushed our freedoms, ballooned our deficits, and held back America's potential in every possible way. The nation founded by pioneers and risk takers now drowns under millions and millions of pages of regulations and debt. Approvals that should take 10 days to get instead take 10 years, 15 years, and even 20 years before you reject it. Meanwhile, we have hundreds of thousands of federal workers who have not been showing up to work. My administration will reclaim power from this unaccountable bureaucracy, and we will restore true democracy to America again. And any federal bureaucrat who resists this change will be removed from office immediately. Because we are draining the swamp. It's very simple. And the days of rule by unelected bureaucrats are over. And the next phase of our plan to deliver the greatest economy in history is for this Congress to pass tax cuts for everybody. They're in there, they're waiting for you to vote. And I'm sure that the people on my right, I don't mean the Republican right, but my right here, I'm sure you're going to vote for those tax cuts, because otherwise I don't believe the people will ever vote you into office. So I'm doing you a big favor by telling you that. But I know this group is going to be voting for the tax. Thank you. A very, very big part of our plan. We had tremendous success in our first term with it. A very big part of our plan. We're seeking permanent income tax cuts all across the board. And to get urgently needed relief to Americans hit especially hard by inflation, I'm calling for no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security benefits for our great seniors. And I also want to make interest payments on car loans tax deductible, but only if the car is made in America. And by the way, we're going to have growth in the auto industry like nobody's ever seen. Plants are opening up all over the place. Deals are being made. Never seen. That's a combination of the election win and tariffs. It's a beautiful word, isn't it? That, along with our other policies, will allow our auto industry to absolutely boom. It's going to boom. Spoke to the majors today, all three, the top people, and they're so excited. In fact, already numerous car companies have announced that they will be building massive automobile plants in America, with Honda just announcing a new plant in Indiana, one of the largest anywhere in the world. And this has taken place since our great victory on November 5th, a date which will hopefully go down as one of the most important in the history of our country. In addition, as part of our tax cuts, we want to cut taxes on domestic production and all manufacturing. And just as we did before, we will provide 100% expensing. It will be retroactive to January 20th, 2025. And it was one of the main reasons why our tax cuts were so successful in our first term, giving us the most successful economy in the history of our country. First term. We had a great first term. If you don't make your product in America, however, under the Trump administration, you will pay a tariff, and in some cases, a rather large one. Other countries have used tariffs against us for decades, and now it's our turn to start using them against those other countries. On average, the European Union, China, Brazil, India, Mexico, and Canada, have you heard of them? And countless other nations charge us tremendously higher tariffs than we charge them. It's very unfair. India charges us auto tariffs higher than 100%. China's average tariff on our products is twice what we charge them. And South Korea's average tariff is 4 times higher. Think of that, 4 times higher. And we give so much help militarily and in so many other ways to South Korea, but that's what happens. This is happening by friend and foe. This system is not fair to the United States. It never was. And so on April 2nd, I wanted to make it April 1st, but I didn't want to be accused of April Fool's Day. That's not, it's just one day, which costs us a lot of money. But we're going to do it in April. I'm a very superstitious person. April 2nd, reciprocal tariffs kick in. And whatever they tariff us, other countries, we will tariff them. That's reciprocal, back and forth. Whatever they tax us, we will tax them. If they do non-monetary tariffs to keep us out of their market, then we will do non-monetary barriers to keep them out of our market. There's a lot of that too. They don't even allow us in their market. We will take in trillions and trillions of dollars and create jobs like we have never seen before. I did it with China and I did it with others, and the Biden administration couldn't do anything about it because there was so much money they couldn't do anything about it. We've been ripped off for decades by nearly every country on earth, and we will not let that happen any longer. Much has been said over the last 3 months about Mexico and Canada, but we have very large deficits with both of them. But even more importantly, they've allowed fentanyl to come into our country at levels never seen before, killing hundreds of thousands of our citizens and many very young, beautiful people, destroying families. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. They are, in effect, receiving subsidies of hundreds of billions of dollars. We pay subsidies to Canada and to Mexico of hundreds of billions of dollars, and the United States will not be doing that any longer. We're not going to do it any longer. Thanks to our America First policies we're putting into place, we have had $1.7 trillion of new investment in America in just the past few weeks. The combination of the election and our economic policies that people of SoftBank, one of the most brilliant anywhere in the world, announced a $200 billion investment. OpenAI and Oracle, Larry Ellison, announced $500 billion investment, which they wouldn't have done if Kamala had won. Apple announced $500 billion investment. Tim Cook called me. He said, I cannot spend it fast enough. It's going to be much higher than that, I believe. They'll be building their plants here instead of in China. And just yesterday, Taiwan Semiconductor, the biggest in the world, most powerful in the world, has a tremendous amount, 97% of the market, announced a $165 billion investment to build the most powerful chips on earth right here in the USA. And we're not giving them any money. Your CHIPS Act is a horrible, horrible thing. We give hundreds of billions of dollars, and it doesn't mean a thing. They take our money and they don't spend it. All that meant to them, we're giving them no money. All that was important to them was they didn't want to pay the tariffs, so they came and they're building, and many other companies are coming. We don't have to give them money. We just want to protect our businesses and our people. And they will come because they won't have to pay tariffs if they build in America. So it's very amazing. You should get rid of the CHIP Act, and whatever's left over, Mr. Speaker, you should use it to reduce debt or any other reason you want to. A new trade policy will also be great for the American farmer. I love the farmer. It will now be selling into our home market, the USA, because nobody is going to be able to compete with you because there's goods that come in from other countries and companies. They're really in a bad position in so many different ways. They're uninspected. They may be very dirty and disgusting, and they come in and they pour in, and they hurt our American farmers. The tariffs will go on agricultural product coming into America, and our farmers starting on April 2nd. It may be a little bit of an adjustment period. We had that before when I made the deal with China, $50 billion of purchases, and I said, just bear with me, and they did. They did. Probably have to bear with me again, and this will be even better. That was great. The problem with it was that Biden didn't enforce it. He didn't enforce it. $50 billion of purchases, and we were doing great, but Biden did not enforce it, and it hurt our farmers. But our farmers are going to have a field day right now. So to our farmers, have a lot of fun. I love you too. I love you too. All going to happen. And I have also imposed a 25% tariff on foreign aluminum, copper, lumber, and steel, because if we don't have, as an example, steel and lots of other things, we don't have a military, and frankly, we just won't have a country very long. Here today is a proud American steelworker, fantastic person from Decatur, Alabama, Jeff Denard. Has been working at the same steel plant for 27 years in a job that has allowed him to serve as the captain of his local volunteer fire department, raised 7 children with his beautiful wife, Nicole, and over the years provide a loving home for more than 40 foster children. So great, Jeff. Thank you, Jeff. Stories like Jeff's remind us that tariffs are not just about protecting American jobs. They're about protecting the soul of our country. Tariffs are about making America rich again and making America great again, and it's happening, and it will happen rather quickly. There'll be a little disturbance, but we're okay with that. It won't be much. No, you're not. Oh. And look where Biden took us. Very low, the lowest we've ever been. Jeff, I want to thank you very much. And I also want to recognize another person who has devoted herself to foster care community. She works so hard on it. A very loving person, our magnificent First Lady of the United States. Melania's work has yielded incredible results, helping prepare our nation's future leaders as they enter the workforce. Our First Lady is joined by 2 impressive young women, very impressive. Haley Ferguson, who benefited from the First Lady's Fostering the Future initiative and is poised to complete her education and become a teacher. And Elliston Berry, who became a victim of an illicit deepfake image produced by a peer. With Elliston's help, the Senate just passed the Take It Down Act, and this is so important. Thank you very much, John. John Thune, thank you. Stand up, John. Thank you, Jim. Thank you all very much.
I mean, it's amazing how the Democrats aren't even willing to. The Democrats aren't even willing to clap for that. It's amazing.
Images online is terrible, terrible thing. And once it passes the House, I look forward to signing that bill into law. Thank you. And I'm going to use that bill for myself too, if you don't mind. Because nobody gets treated worse than I do online. Nobody. That's great. Thank you very much to the Senate. Thank you. But if we truly care about protecting Americans' children, no step is more crucial than securing America's borders. Over the past 4 years, 21 million people poured into the United States. Many of them were murderers, human traffickers, gang members, and other criminals from the streets of dangerous cities all throughout the world. Because of Joe Biden's insane and very dangerous open border policies, they are now strongly embedded in our country, but we are getting them out and getting them out fast. And I want to thank Tom Homan and Christy. I want to thank you and Paul of Border Patrol. I want to thank you. What a job they've all done. Everybody, Border Patrol, ICE, law enforcement in general is incredible. We have to take care of our law enforcement. We have to. Last year, a brilliant 22-year-old nursing student named Laken Riley, the best in her class, admired by everybody, went out for a jog on the campus of the University of Georgia. That morning, Laken was viciously attacked, assaulted, beaten, brutalized, and horrifically murdered. Laken was stolen from us by a savage illegal alien gang member who was arrested while trespassing across Biden's open southern border and then set loose into the United States under the heartless policies of that failed administration. It was indeed a failed administration. He had then been arrested and released in a Democrat-run sanctuary city, a disaster, before ending the life of this beautiful young angel. With us this evening are Laken's beloved mother, Allison, and her sister, Lauren. Last year, I told Laken's grieving parents that we would ensure their daughter would not have died in vain. That's why the very first bill I signed into law as your 47th president mandates the detention of all dangerous criminal aliens who threaten public safety. It's a very strong, powerful act. It's called the Laken-Riley Act. So Allison and Lauren, America will never ever forget our beautiful Laken Hope Riley. Thank you very much. Since taking office, my administration has launched the most sweeping border and immigration crackdown in American history, and we quickly achieved the lowest numbers of illegal border crossers ever recorded. Thank you. The media and our friends in the Democrat Party kept saying we needed new legislation. We must have legislation to secure the border. But it turned out that all we really needed was a new president. Thank you. Joe Biden didn't just open our borders, he flew illegal aliens over them to overwhelm our schools, hospitals, and communities throughout the country. Entire towns like Aurora, Colorado, and Springfield, Ohio, buckled under the weight of the migrant occupation and corruption like nobody's ever seen before. Beautiful towns destroyed. Now, just as I promised in my inaugural address, we are achieving the great liberation of America. But there still is much work to be done. Here tonight is a woman I have gotten to know, Alexis Nungari from Houston. Wonderful woman. Last June, Alexis's 12-year-old daughter, her precious Jocelyn, walked to a nearby convenience store. She was kidnapped, tied up, assaulted for 2 hours under a bridge, and horrifically murdered. Arrested and charged with this heinous crime are 2 illegal alien monsters from Venezuela, released into America by the last administration through their ridiculous open border. The death of this beautiful 12-year-old girl and the agony of her mother and family touched our entire nation greatly. Alexis, I promised that we would always remember your daughter, your magnificent daughter, and earlier tonight I signed an order keeping my word to you. One thing I have learned about Jocelyn is that she loved animals so much, she loved nature. Across Galveston Bay, from where Jocelyn lived in Houston, you will find a magnificent national wildlife refuge, a pristine, peaceful, 34,000-acre sanctuary for all of God's creatures on the edge of the Gulf of America. Alexis, moments ago, I formally renamed that refuge in loving memory of your beautiful daughter, Jocelyn. So, Mr. Vice President, if you would, may I have the order? Thank you very much. All 3 savages charged with Jocelyn and Lakin's murders were members of the Venezuelan prison gang, the toughest gang, they say, in the world, known as Tren de Aragua. 2 weeks ago, I officially designated this gang, along with MS-13 and the bloodthirsty Mexican drug cartels, as foreign terrorist organizations. They are now officially in the same category as ISIS, and that's not good for them. Countless thousands of these terrorists were welcomed into the U.S. by the Biden administration. But now every last one will be rounded up and forcibly removed from our country, or, if they're too dangerous, put in jails, standing trial in this country, because we don't want them to come back ever. With us this evening is a warrior on the front lines of that battle, Border Patrol Agent Roberto Ortiz. Great guy. In January, Roberto and another agent were patrolling by the Rio Grande near an area known as Cottrell Island. Doesn't sound too nice to me. When heavily armed gunmen started shooting at them. Roberto saw that his partner was totally exposed, at great danger, and he leapt into action, returning fire and providing crucial seconds for his fellow agent to seek safety, just barely. I have some of the prints of that event, and it was not good. Agent Ortiz, we salute you for your great courage and for your line of fire that you took and for the bravery that you showed. We honor you, and we will always honor you. Thank you, Roberto, very much. Thank you, Roberto. And I actually got to know him on my many calls to the border. He's a great gentleman. The territory to the immediate south of our border is now dominated entirely by criminal cartels that murder, rape, torture, and exercise total control. They have total control over a whole nation, posing a grave threat to our national security. The cartels are waging war in America, and it's time for America to wage war on the cartels, which we are doing. Five nights ago, Mexican authorities, because of our tariff policies being imposed on them, think of this, handed over to us 29 of the biggest cartel leaders in their country. That has never happened before. They want to make us happy. First time ever. But we need Mexico and Canada to do much more than they've done, and they have to stop the fentanyl and drugs pouring into the USA. They're going to stop it. I have sent Congress a detailed funding request laying out exactly how we will eliminate these threats to protect our homeland and complete the largest deportation operation in American history, larger even than current record holder President Dwight D. Eisenhower, a moderate man, but someone who believed very strongly in borders. Americans expect Congress to send me this funding without delay so I can sign it into law. So, Mr. Speaker, John Thiel, both of you, I hope you're going to be able to do that, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. Mr. Leader, thank you. Thank you very much. And let's get it to me. I'll sign it so fast, you won't even believe it. And as we reclaim our sovereignty, we must also bring back law and order to our cities and towns. In recent years, our justice system has been turned upside down by radical left lunatics. Many jurisdictions virtually ceased enforcing the law against dangerous repeat offenders while weaponizing law enforcement against political opponents like me. My administration has acted swiftly and decisively to restore fair, equal, and impartial justice under the constitutional rule of law, starting at the FBI and the DOJ. Pam, good luck. Cash, wherever you may be, good luck. Good luck. Pam Bond, good luck. So important. You're going to do a great job. Cash, thank you. Thank you, Cash. They've already started very strong. They're going to do a fantastic job. You're going to be very proud of them. We're also once again giving our police officers the support, protection, and respect they so dearly deserve. They have to get it. They have such a hard, dangerous job, but we're going to make it less dangerous. The problem is the bad guys don't respect the law, but they're starting to respect it, and they soon will respect it. This also includes our great fire departments throughout the country. Our firemen and women are unbelievable people, and I will never forget them. And besides that, they voted for me in record numbers, so I have no choice. 1 year ago this month, 31-year-old New York police officer Jonathan Diller, unbelievably wonderful person and a great officer, was gunned down at a traffic stop on Long Island. I went to his funeral. The vicious criminal charged with his murder had 21 prior arrests, and they were rough arrests. He was a real bad one. The thug in the seat next to him had 14 prior arrests and went by the name of Killer. He was Killer. He killed other people, they say, a lot of them. I attended Officer Diller's service, and when I met his wife and 1-year-old son, Ryan, it was very inspirational, actually. His widow's name is Stephanie, and she is here tonight. Stephanie, thank you very much, Stephanie. Thank you very much. Stephanie, we're going to make sure that Ryan knows his dad was a true hero, New York's finest, and we're going to get these cold-blooded killers and repeat offenders off our streets, so we're going to do it fast. Got to stop it. They get out with 28 arrests. They push people into subway trains. They hit people over the head, back of the head with baseball bats. We got to get them out of here. I've already signed an executive order requiring a mandatory death penalty for anyone who murders a police officer. And tonight I'm asking Congress to pass that policy into permanent law. I'm also asking for a new crime bill getting tough on repeat offenders while enhancing protections for America's police officers so they can do their jobs without fear of their lives being totally destroyed. They don't want to be killed. We're not going to let them be killed. Joining us in the gallery tonight is a young man who truly loves our police. His name is DJ Daniel. He is 13 years old, and he has always dreamed of becoming a police officer. But in 2018, DJ was diagnosed with brain cancer. The doctors gave him 5 months at most to live. That was more than 6 years ago. Since that time, DJ and his dad have been on a quest to make his dream come true, and DJ has been sworn in as an honorary law enforcement officer, actually a number of times. The police love him, the police departments love him. And tonight, DJ, we're going to do you the biggest honor of them all. I am asking our new Secret Service Director, Sean Curran, to officially make you an agent of the United States Secret Service. Thank you, DJ. DJ's doctors believe his cancer likely came from a chemical he was exposed to when he was younger. Since 1975, rates of child cancer have increased by more than 40%. Reversing this trend is one of the top priorities for our new presidential commission to make America healthy again, chaired by our new Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. With the name Kennedy, you would have thought everybody over here would have been cheering. How quickly they forget. Our goal is to get toxins out of our environment, poisons out of our food supply, and keep our children healthy and strong. As an example, not long ago, and you can't even believe these numbers, 1 in 10,000 children had autism, 1 in 10,000. And now it's 1 in 36. There's something wrong. 1 in 36. Think of that. So we're going to find out what it is, and there's nobody better than Bobby and all of the people that are working with you. You have the best to figure out what is going on. Okay, Bobby, good luck. It's a very important job. Thank you. Thank you. My administration is also working to protect our children from toxic ideologies in our schools. A few years ago, January, Little John and her husband discovered that their daughter's school had secretly socially transitioned their 13-year-old little girl. Teachers and administrators conspired to deceive January and her husband while encouraging her daughter to use a new name and pronouns. They, them pronoun, actually, all without telling January, who is here tonight and is now a courageous advocate against this form of child abuse. January, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Stories like this are why, shortly after taking office, I signed an executive order banning public schools from indoctrinating our children with transgender ideology. I also signed an order to cut off all taxpayer funding to any institution that engages in the sexual mutilation of our youth. And now I want Congress to pass a bill permanently banning and criminalizing sex changes on children and forever ending the lie that any child is trapped in the wrong body. This is a big lie. And our message to every child in America is that you are perfect exactly the way God made you. Because we're getting wokeness out of our schools and out of our military, and it's already out, and it's out of our society. We don't want it. Wokeness is trouble. Wokeness is bad. It's gone. It's gone. And we feel so much better for it, don't we? Don't we feel better? Our service members won't be activists and ideologues. They will be fighters and warriors. They will fight for our country. And Pete, congratulations. Secretary of Defense, congratulations. and he's not big into the woke movement, I can tell you. I know him well. I am pleased to report that in January, the U.S. Army had its single best recruiting month in 15 years, and that all armed services are having among the best recruiting results ever in the history of our services. What a difference. And you know, it was just a few months ago where the results were exactly the opposite. We couldn't recruit anywhere. We couldn't recruit. Now we're having the best results just about that we've ever had. What a tremendous turnaround. It's really a beautiful thing to see. People love our country again. It's very simple. They love our country and they love being in our military again. So it's a great thing, and thank you very much. Great job. We're joined tonight by a young man, Jason Hartley, who knows the weight of that call of duty. Jason's father, grandfather, and great-grandfather all wore the uniform. Jason tragically lost his dad, who was also a Los Angeles County Sheriff's deputy when he was just a boy, and now he wants to carry on the family legacy of service. Jason is a senior in high school, a 6-letter varsity athlete, a really good athlete, they say, a brilliant student with a 4.46, that's good, GPA. And his greatest dream is to attend the U.S. Military Academy at West Point. And Jason, that's a very big deal getting in. That's a hard one to get into. But I'm pleased to inform you that your application has been accepted. You will soon be joining the Corps of Cadets. Thank you. Jason, you're going to be on the long gray line, Jason. As Commander-in-Chief, my focus is on building the most powerful military of the future. As a first step, I'm asking Congress to fund a state-of-the-art Golden Dome missile defense shield to protect our homeland, all made in the USA. Ronald Reagan wanted to do it long ago, but the technology just wasn't there, not even close. But now we have the technology. It's incredible, actually. And other places they have it. Israel has it. Other places have it. And the United States should have it too, right, Tim? Right? They should have it too. So I want to thank you. But it's a very, very important. This is a very dangerous world. We should have it. We want to be protected, and we're going to protect our citizens like never before. To boost our defense industrial base, we are also going to resurrect the American shipbuilding industry, including commercial shipbuilding and military shipbuilding. And for that purpose, I am announcing tonight that we will create a new Office of Shipbuilding in the White House and offer special tax incentives to bring this industry home to America where it belongs. We used to make so many ships. We don't make them anymore very much, but we're going to make them very fast, very soon. It will have a huge impact. To further enhance our national security, my administration will be reclaiming the Panama Canal, and we've already started doing it. Just Yesterday, a large American company announced they are buying both ports around the Panama Canal and lots of other things having to do with the Panama Canal and a couple of other canals. The Panama Canal was built by Americans for Americans, not for others, but others could use it. But it was built at tremendous cost of American blood and treasure. 38,000 workers died building the Panama Canal. They died of malaria, they died of snake bites and mosquitoes. Not a nice place to work. They paid them very highly to go there, knowing there was a 25% chance that they would die. The most expensive project also that was ever built in our country's history, if you bring it up to modern day costs. It was given away by the Carter administration for $1, but that agreement has been violated very severely. We didn't give it to China. We gave it to Panama, and we're taking it back. We have Marco Rubio in charge. Good luck, Marco. Now, we know who to blame if anything goes wrong. Now, Marco's been amazing, and he's going to do a great job. Think of it, he got 100 votes. You know, he was approved with actually 99, but the 100th was this gentleman, and I feel very certain. So let's assume he got 100 votes, and I'm either very, very happy about that or I'm very concerned about it. But he's already proven. I mean, he's a great gentleman. He's respected by everybody, and we appreciate you voting for Marco. He's going to do a fantastic job. Thank you. Thank you. He's doing a great job. Great job. And I also have a message tonight for the incredible people of Greenland. We strongly support your right to determine your own future. And if you choose, we welcome you into the United States of America. We need Greenland for national security and even international security. And we're working with everybody involved to try and get it. But we need it really for international world security. And I think we're going to get it. One way or the other, we're going to get it. We will keep you safe. We will make you rich, and together we will take Greenland to heights like you have never thought possible before. It's a very small population, but very, very large piece of land and very, very important for military security. America is once again standing strong against the forces of radical Islamic terrorism. 3.5 years ago, ISIS terrorists killed 13 American service members and countless others in the Abbey Gate bombing during the disastrous and incompetent withdrawal from Afghanistan. Not that they were withdrawing, it was the way they withdrew. Perhaps the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. Tonight, I am pleased to announce that we have just apprehended the top terrorist responsible for that atrocity. And he is right now on his way here to face the swift sword of American justice. And I want to thank especially the government of Pakistan for helping arrest this monster. This was a very momentous day for those 13 families who I actually got to know very well, most of them, whose children were murdered, and the many people that were so badly, over 42 people, so badly injured on that fateful day in Afghanistan. What a horrible day. Such incompetence was shown. That when Putin saw what happened, I guess he said, wow, maybe this is my chance. That's how bad it was. Should have never happened. Grossly incompetent people. I spoke to many of the parents and loved ones, and they're all in our hearts tonight. Just spoke to them on the phone. We had a big call every one of them called, and everybody was on the line, and they did nothing but cry with happiness. They were very happy, as happy as you can be under those circumstances. Their child, brother, sister, son, daughter was killed for no reason whatsoever. In the Middle East, we're bringing back our hostages from Gaza. In my first term, we achieved one of the most groundbreaking peace agreements in generations, the Abraham Accords. And now we're going to build on that foundation to create a more peaceful and prosperous future for the entire region. A lot of things are happening in the Middle East. People have been talking about that so much lately with everything going on with Ukraine and Russia. A lot of things are happening in the Middle East. It's a rough neighborhood, actually. I'm also working tirelessly to end the savage conflict in Ukraine. Millions of Ukrainians and Russians have been needlessly killed or wounded in this horrific and brutal conflict with no end in sight. The United States has sent hundreds of billions of dollars to support Ukraine's defense with no security, with no anything. Do you want to keep it going for another 5 years? Yeah, you would say Pocahontas says yes. $2,000 people are being killed every single week. More than that. They're Russian young people, they're Ukrainian young people. They're not Americans, but I want it to stop. Meanwhile, Europe has sadly spent more money buying Russian oil and gas than they have spent on defending Ukraine, by far. Think of that. They've spent more buying Russian oil and gas than they have defending. And we've spent perhaps $350 billion, like taking candy from a baby. That's what happened. And they've spent $100 billion. What a difference that is. And we have an ocean separating us, and they don't. But we're getting along very well with them, and lots of good things are happening. Biden has authorized more money in this fight than Europe has spent by billions and billions of dollars. It's hard to believe that they wouldn't have stopped it and said at some point, come on, let's equalize. You got to be equal to us. That didn't happen. Earlier today, I received an important letter from President Zelensky of Ukraine. The letter reads, Ukraine is ready to come to the negotiating table as soon as possible to bring lasting peace closer. Nobody wants peace more than the Ukrainians, he said. My team and I stand ready to work under President Trump's strong leadership to get a peace that lasts. We do really value how much America has done to help Ukraine maintain its sovereignty and independence. Regarding the agreement on minerals and security, Ukraine is ready to sign it at any time that is convenient for you. I appreciate that he sent this letter, just got it a little while ago. Simultaneously, we've had serious discussions with Russia and have received strong signals that they are ready for peace. Wouldn't that be beautiful? Wouldn't that be beautiful? Wouldn't that be beautiful? It's time to stop this madness. It's time to halt the killing. It's time to end this senseless war. If you want to end wars, you have to talk to both sides. Nearly 4 years ago, amid rising tensions, a history teacher named Mark Fogel was detained in Russia and sentenced to 14 years in a penal colony. Rough stuff. The previous administration barely lifted a finger to help him. They knew he was innocent, but they had no idea where to begin. But last summer, I promised his 95-year-old mother, Malphine, that we would bring her boy safely back home. After 22 days in office, I did just that, and they are here tonight. To Mark and his great mom, we are delighted to have you safe and sound and with us. As fate would have it, Mark Fogel was born in a small rural town in Butler, Pennsylvania. Have you heard of it? Where his mother has lived for the past 78 years. I just happened to go there last July 13th for a rally. That was not pleasant. And that is where I met his beautiful mom right before I walked onto that stage. And I told her I would not forget what she said about her son. And I never did I? Never forgot. Less than 10 minutes later, at that same rally, gunfire rang out, and a sick and deranged assassin unloaded 8 bullets from his sniper's perch into a crowd of many thousands of people. My life was saved by a fraction of an inch, but some were not so lucky. Corey Comparator was a firefighter, a veteran, a Christian, a husband, a devoted father, and above all, a protector. When the sound of gunshots pierced the air, it was a horrible sound. Corey knew instantly what it was and what to do. He threw himself on top of his wife and daughters and shielded them from the bullets with his own body. Corey was hit really hard. You know the story from there. He sacrificed his life to save theirs. 2 others, very fine people, were also seriously hit. But thankfully, with the help of 2 great country doctors, he thought they were gone and they were saved. So those doctors had great talent. We're joined by Corey's wife, Helen, who was his high school sweetheart, and their 2 beloved daughters, Allison and Kaylee. Thank you. To Helen, Allison, and Kaylee, Corey is looking down on his 3 beautiful ladies right now, and he is cheering you on. He loves you. He is cheering you on. Corey was taken from us much too soon, but his destiny was to leave us all with a shining example of the selfless devotion of a true American patriot. It was love like Corey's that built our country, and it's love like Corey's that is going to make our country more majestic than ever before. I believe that my life was saved that day in Butler for a very good reason. I was saved by God to make America great again. I believe that. Thank you very much. From the patriots of Lexington and Concord to the heroes of Gettysburg and Normandy, from the warriors who crossed the Delaware to the trailblazers who climbed the Rockies, and from the legends who soared at Kitty Hawk to the astronauts who touched the moon, Americans have always been the people who defied all odds, transcended all dangers, made the most extraordinary sacrifices, and did whatever it took to defend our children, our country, and our freedom. And as we have seen in this chamber tonight, that same strength, faith, love, and spirit is still alive and thriving in the hearts of the American people. Despite the best efforts of those who would try to censor us, silence us, break us, destroy us, Americans are today a proud, free, sovereign, and independent nation that will always be free, and we will fight for it till death. We will never let anything happen to our beloved country, because we are a country of doers, dreamers, fighters, and survivors. Our ancestors crossed a vast ocean, strode into the unknown wilderness, and carved their fortunes from the rock and soil of a perilous and very dangerous frontier. They chased our destiny across a boundless continent. They built the railroads, laid the highways, and graced the world with American marvels like the Empire State Building, the mighty Hoover Dam, and the towering Golden Gate Bridge. They lit the world with electricity, broke free of the force of gravity, fired up the engines of American industry, vanquished the communists, fascists, and Marxists all over the world, and gave us countless modern wonders sculptured out of iron, glass, and steel. We stand on the shoulders of these pioneers who won and built the modern age. These workers who poured their sweat into the skylines of our cities. These warriors who shed their blood on fields of battle and gave everything they had for our rights and for our freedom. Now it is our time to take up the righteous cause of American liberty. And it is our turn to take America's destiny into our own hands and begin the most thrilling days in the history of our country. This will be our greatest era. With God's help, over the next 4 years, we are going to lead this nation even higher, and we are going to forge the freest, most advanced, most dynamic, and most dominant civilization ever to exist on the face of this earth. We are going to create the highest quality of life, build the safest and wealthiest and healthiest and most vital communities anywhere in the world. We are going to conquer the vast frontiers of science, and we are going to lead humanity into space and plant the American flag on the planet Mars and even far beyond. And through it all, we are going to rediscover the unstoppable power of the American spirit. And we are going to renew unlimited promise of the American dream. Every single day we will stand up and we will fight, fight, fight for the country our citizens believe in and for the country our people deserve. My fellow Americans, get ready for an incredible future, because the golden age of America has only just begun. It will be like nothing that has ever been seen before. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.
Now, my take on this, for the ones that are watching on Rumble Live and on YouTube and X Spaces, my take on the last part of the speech, I think, was very inspirational. The sad thing is that the other side of the aisle, the Democrat side of the aisle, did not stand up and cheer for that exploration ethos of America. I find that the Democratic Party in general, especially modern day Democratic Party, wants to look down and not up. They're not exploring. They're not going out into the unknown and taking risks, right? And thinking big. The Democratic Party has a tendency to be looking down and not looking up into the future. And I think it was emblematic with their reaction, with the last part of that speech. I don't know if Don wants to maybe just give his take on the speech, maybe 4 minutes or so before we shut down the transmission. If you do want to talk, Don, on X Spaces, just to give me your take on it, please just request. If not, I'll just shut down. Okay, good. All right, you got the mic, Don.
Yeah, I kind of think that the Democratic Party's in disarray. And I think the thing that Trump is sort of attacking, that idea behind, we talked about before, a retracement back to first order principles of liberty. And you've seen these policies that have infiltrated a lot of the academic institutions from, I think, the DEI, ESG, and I think that have actually been undermining American exceptionalism. And I think Trump, during this whole speech, is poking fun at it. And you just have those on the left that I think are still doubling down on these nonsensical policies that are going to lead to the destruction of our country and this experiment of liberty. And I think they haven't come to terms yet with understanding, again, what those, I keep coming back to these first order principles are. They just can't see the threat to liberty yet.
Right. Well, going back to this whole Esau, negative Esau, positive Esau thing. Well, they're digging in, and to me, they're starting to represent the negative side of Esau. It's almost like Congress is splitting. The right side of Congress is like the positive side of Esau, and the left side of Congress is the negative Esau. And that this evilness that attaches to the negative side of Esau, it's dying. It's starting to know it's dying. I mean, I was shocked that they weren't willing to stand up for some of the acknowledgments that were in the peanut gallery. Some of these things were like so bipartisan. I don't understand why they have to feel as though anything that comes out of Trump's mouth is bad. It's just, they may disagree with certain policies. They may disagree with tax policy or whatever. I can understand that. But some of these things, like the child that was, given a Secret Service badge, right? That everybody should be standing up for, especially if he's a cancer survivor. I mean, it's a miracle the kid's still alive. I mean, I don't know if you were watching the TV, but you could see that, how they opened up his skull to take out the cancer. I mean, he had the scar marks. So I just some of these people that are on the Democratic side just seem diabolical. Like they hate everything. It's so weird. And I find it not by mistake that it was the black representative, I don't know his name, that was, causing such disruption in the chamber that the guard had to usher him out.
And I think they're going to try to, again, distract us also with respect to that as well. Even if Al Green happened to be the person, I mean, it's Pelosi,
that's his name.
It's Cheney, it's the neocons. It is like, but they're going to still try to distract us in these false like falsely constructed, I call them narratives of, using race to divide us, using class warfare to divide us, using identity politics to divide us, as you're saying, versus going back to common sense policies that benefit all of us. Because I think it comes back to this idea that American entrepreneurism and this, that it will lead to lifting lifting everybody's standard of living, versus basically heading us back towards some type of chaotic tyranny. And I think it's unfortunate. I think that they've been captured by, I call these weaponized epithetical arguments. And you can't debate the logic of their positions anymore. It's all it is derangement at this point in time.
Mm-hmm. I think Trump set this thing up really well. Especially, showing the light of what happens when you have a porous border. Some of these, the negative effects that literally people die because of a porous border.
And that's why I said it's funny. So if you look at what in the Democrats, especially going after white liberal women, it was the abortion issue. And yet, if you try to bring in the fact of what's happening at the borders with women being trafficked and young children, especially young girls and young boys, whatever, that was not at all part of their factoring. It was just purely like in the case of some of the far right Republicans, this with gun rights, it's like nothing else could factor into the decision.
Right.
And so, the border being a national threat, they were willing to really just end up destroying the country based on one position. And that's kind of what I feel what happened in the politics side of things. It was no longer, what were the important things that protect us all, or we can rally behind it. Let's pick one issue that will divide us and create that shiny object to distract us from what the true threats are.
Do you listen to any of the shows that I do with Miss Taiwan?
No.
Okay, so there's some shows that I do with Miss Taiwan that are on Rumble or the other channels on YouTube. And she has a unique perspective, and she keeps on bringing up when I do these shows with her that what's happening with the Democratic Party is exactly what was happening during the early days of the CCP, the Communist Party with Mao, with changing the mindset of people. So, so she's basically saying that you got to really watch out for the Democratic Party because they're not for the country. They're literally coming right from a communistic mentality. And what is interesting is that there was this podcaster, I don't know her name, but she has been on Hannity and Huckabee's show on Fox, but she's from North Korea. And she basically said the same thing, that the United States, they don't realize that, we have all this freedom, but the Democratic Party is setting themselves up into some sort of quasi-communist party. But people in the United States don't see it. It's when individuals that have seen the tyranny of communism in Asia that actually see it. And I think that she's right. I mean, what this podcaster is saying that's from North Korea and what Miss Taiwan's saying are basically the same thing. But, Miss Taiwan obviously is coming from the perspective of, a Taiwanese nationalist perspective. But the thing is that, there's something there that they're picking up that a lot of Americans are not picking up. That there's a takeover of the Democratic Party that is quasi, communistic. And I saw this on campus at Harvard. I mean, literally, the bulletin boards would have plastered, at 9 o'clock, p.m. There's going to be a rally, a communist rally. So I mean, I literally have seen this on campus. So this is something real that's happening. Or even the mayor of Boston, she's ex-Harvard, I think, ×2. I think she went from to Harvard College and to law, but she's running the city into the ground. And you listen to some of her positions, it's like, it doesn't seem in line with the Constitution. It's more in line with the Red Book for Mao.
And it's funny, the debates that I've seen before, whether it was William F. Buckley, debating the communists, or whoever it was, it didn't necessarily just, you have to like William F. Buckley, but to have long periods of time where people would basically debate positions, that you could see coherence in sort of the logical structures of the arguments. Like most people, just the way that the minds have been rewired around social media and these, I call them weaponized hypothetical arguments of ESG or DEI, they break down if you try to force them into try to defend their positions. But there's no time to have them reflect on their positions and see if there's coherence in their arguments. And so therefore you're just left with what I call sound bites or
Right.
feeling.
Right. It seems as though, sometimes students will know a subject, right? And no matter how you question them about that subject, they have enough wisdom and knowledge about the subject to be able to answer it correctly and to state a cogent, perspective. But a lot of times today, it's as if they're trying to remember sound bites from social media. It's almost like this is the propaganda rhetoric you should say if they try to counter your argument. It's as if they're trying to remember. And so it's really easy if they don't really understand, these social systems that we're talking about. It's really easy to trip them up after, 1 or 2 degrees deeper into the discussion. It's almost as if they're just used to tweeting out, a 160 character propaganda speech. So
I think, and I mentioned Gladstone before, who was one, and this guy Mayberry talks about the bloodless revolution that happened in the 1800s after the American Revolution. And it says it was bloodless because there was already a cultural conditioning around common law, again, which was the founding fathers, stated vigorously about defending. And so, therefore, there was already a tradition there of trying to uphold the common law. So, therefore, he could get rid of the corruption that was existing in institutions and essentially do it, bloodlessly, and versus our violent revolution. But we could have gone the path of like the Robespierre and the French Revolution. But so it's this idea of basically making sure that we reconnect it, coming back to these initial.
See, I think what it was is that we were at a unique period of time just before there in the United States were the ones that were wealthy versus the ones that weren't. They still had a common goal, and they also, I think, had a common ethical framework for a new country, right? It wasn't really, at least ones that were living in the United States, it wasn't like the haves and the have-nots battling each other. In France, because it was a more developed country, when they had their revolution, that the aristocracy was more developed in their country. We didn't really have an aristocracy back when we had our revolution. So, but if we have another revolution, and hopefully we don't have the same conditions as we had during the American Revolution. We do now have an aristocracy. And if we do go down a road of revolution, it most likely will be a very bloody French-like revolution, where there's going to be almost probably the Constitution would be gone. Now, hopefully that never happens. But we have an aristocracy that has developed in the United States now. With Piketty and his research in economics, the haves and the have-not disparity in the United States is vast now.
And I think that's why it was unique to find someone like Trump and, say, Musk. At this point in time, it appears like they're trying to dismantle, this corrupt system that was being sort of enforced upon us by this sort of elites, in these gated communities in which, the elites which again, there's a great book by Murray talks about this. It's like roles have been reversed. In the blue collar workforce, higher divorce rates, the opposite was happening in elite institutions. And you saw in the elite institutions, they were gaining a lot of the power within the political systems. So their success that they were seeing, and in their fields, which a lot of them were in the finance world, which you could argue was sort of artificially created from, let's say, some of the Federal Reserve policies and so forth, their success was sort of predicated upon something that was not sustainable. And so, but they were, again, had the levers of power, so they were in the political systems, and they were attracted to these sort of weaponized, I call them empathetical arguments, where they felt guilty for their own success, right? And then they would say open borders, which they don't necessarily, there was no logic to say, well, how many people do we allow in, and how do we pay for it? It was just everybody should be allowed into this country. And then the people who suffered ended up being the people in the cities who had to deal with, the human trafficking and so forth, and some of the things that were happening because these people have no means of actually of going to the police because they would be deported. So it created the road to hell was paved with good intentions. I mean, it was the whole fable. I mean, the whole moral, the whole saying.
Maybe that's what I should call one of my shows, The Road to Hell. But I've been, after grave concerns, I do episode 100. I usually change the name, and I've been playing around with the either Warpath would be one, but Road to Hell maybe would be maybe a good one. But I'll tell you, I thought the speech was good. I think it was very Trumpian. All right. And it's sad to see that on things that he did bring up during the speech that could be bipartisan, the other side decided to just sit there and not clap or stand up. It's as if Orange Man bad always. And this is what's going to destroy the Democratic Party. I mean, literally, if Trump can be successful in what's going on in the next 2 years, and the Republican Party can get more seats in the Senate and in the House of Representatives, then you are talking about this is going to carry way beyond the Trump years, the next 4 Trump years. It's going to carry on into the next presidential administration. We're seeing a new age for the country, and it's not going to be a Democratic Party age. It's going to be a Republican, quasi-Trumpish J.D. Vance age. And I'm not sure exactly what term we're going to use 4 years from now. But it won't be MAGA, but it'll be something. It's going to be different than the typical Republican Party.
I see the word that he keeps using, and it's common sense.
This goes right to the revolution with common sense.
I said it's funny. It's common law, common sense. Mm-hmm. It's like we're going back to common, mm-hmm. which I think common sense. The funny thing, that's why I feel like with making things again. You were an engineer. If something doesn't work, there's a feedback loop, right? Immediately says that didn't work. Right. There's no type of political emotional layering over the feedback loop saying it didn't work for this reason. It just didn't work because it's common sense. Right. And it can't work, so I've got to try something different.
Well, this is what Thomas Sowell says pretty well is that in the social sciences, because it doesn't have any physics, you can make up anything. And that's how these professors become well known. Is that they have these hypotheses and they create an experiment, social experiment, and pool data to try to to prove it, and they can construct the actual experiment to definitely prove their point. And that's the problem with social sciences. But I feel positive for the country in general, but it's going to be chaotic. There's going to be tumultuous times. Definitely in the near term.
I think there are three. I think they mentioned three political states as Mayberry. It's liberty, chaos, and tyranny. And that's why I said I think the idea is Trump is trying to limit the chaos that's coming. And so the idea is give Americans enough time that we can recreate the systems of liberty. And you got to rebuild from the local levels, which means even attacking your local educational systems.
Mm-hmm.
We have to reteach civic virtue all over again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you're taking back the educational system because we're going to have to put back the rituals so that we can, again, retrace.
I don't know how much you're exposed to kids, all right? But I'll tell you, the kids today in the public school, they just don't seem to really know much. Now, I know maybe it's, my generation was better than their generation, mentality.
Well, Paul,
there's something not right. There's something just not right about what they learn.
Let me give you some hopes. We just went up to Penn's College of Technology, and at this job fair, it's thriving. Like the trades are just thriving because again, there's this movement back of manufacturing back to the United States.
Mm-hmm.
You can't get high, industrial. You can't get high voltage electricians. You can't get a maintenance person. So now there's a demand for that, and these kids, some of them are recognizing it. And some of these kids at these jobs, I want to be a maintenance manager. Like you would never have heard that before, right? Everybody wants to go into finance,
right?
But so I'm saying there is a change coming, and it is funny. It is subtle, but it is building. It's there, and it's going to go in that direction. I think with the policies that we're seeing, because there's not enough people in the trades right now to make the things. And I'll tell you, it's funny. I ran into Mike, who's the guy who does dirty jobs.
Oh, Mike Rowe.
I bumped into him actually.
Really? Wow.
In Baltimore. And I was like, Mike, how's it going? He says he's concerned about the infrastructure of the country because, with all these people are retiring, and I get that. It's like people don't realize a nuclear power plant, it runs 24 hours a day, right? And there's a lot of competency that goes into and conscientiousness that goes into running these things,
mm-hmm.
right? And so that's a respect for that trade and building that conscientiousness and willing to basically go into a field which is sort of there's what do you want to say? It's not sitting behind a video screen, and there's a competency with it that and a respect for that trade, doing what you're doing. You recognize the job that there's what do you respect there's for that position in society.
Right. Well, hopefully, there is a sea change that's taking place. I just don't see it in the youth that I've seen in New York, New York City. I do see that some groups, they're doing like scientific fairs and they present, what their study was, and they're trying to, get into good schools, and sometimes they're NYU sponsors these kind of things at the museums, and you can kind of see these fairs taking place. But I would say the majority of the students that are coming from the public school, they just don't. I'll tell you, they're not into engineering, but it could be a New York thing. Maybe it's if you don't have a garage, how do you tinker around? Exactly. If you don't have a garage, how do you have a garage band? You can't, right? It's all about tinkering. So New York doesn't have the space for tinkering.
That's right. I would agree with that. Yeah, but you can create that quick. My thing is, it'd be interesting if this sea change starts to happen. You get Musk and you get the big tech people involved behind this. That they then create those tinkering institutions, because there's going to be a lot of commercial real estate coming up, right. And maybe you team up the homeschoolers with this commercial real estate, and you create a whole new.
Well, what was interesting is there was a professor, I don't remember his name, I saw him speak. He's a professor at NYU, and he specializes in politics in New York politics, New York City politics. And one of the sponsors for the talk over at the Harvard Club is a member that's on the event committee. and she was a student for her graduate studies at NYU. And the event coordinator was basically thinking that the sciences and engineering is so prevalent in New York. And she was just flabbergasted when the professor said, actually, New York is really weak when it comes to engineering. I mean, extremely weak. And even in science, even in medical science discovery, in medical science administration, in clinic, in administering certain treatments, yeah, New York has, because it has a large population. But when it comes to actually discovering something new, or building something, or designing something, New York sucks. And she was just flabbergasted to hear that, because she said, well, we have Columbia and we have Cornell Tech here, and it's like, but it's all educational. It's just because there's an educational track to get a degree doesn't mean there's real new scientific discovery. And he's right about that. And he said the reason why is it costs too much to have the labs here. It costs too much to actually engineer anything here. So so there's the perception that large cities like New York are viable in the sciences and in engineering, and it's quite the opposite. It's viable in law, and it's viable in finance, but not in engineering and in basic research. It's just too costly.
Yeah, that maybe that's part of what we'll see with people moving back into, there's maybe, like I said, it's
the opposite of a 15-minute city. A 15-minute city is going to make the society less engineering savvy and scientific discovery savvy. You need the suburbs and the rural area. This is where you think about like plants, it's going to cost a lot less to build something in a rural area, right, than it would be to try to do the same thing in a metropolis.
And I think this goes back to maybe this idea of this decentralization movement as well, where you've had centralization of power in these institutions like joint finance, and as they falter, everything becomes much more distributed.
Right. All right. Well, it's been a good talk, Don. I appreciate all the times that you participate in X Spaces, and it's getting time for me to wrap this up. I just want to remind everyone on Rumble, thank you for watching the live stream, and the ones that have been watching the live stream on YouTube, thank you very much. And the ones that are even listening on X Spaces, I appreciate everyone listening and participating. And I'll talk to you again, Donna, on the next show if you're available. So I'm going to shut down everything. Hopefully you learned something, and hopefully you enjoyed the speech from Trump. But I'll be doing another show tomorrow. Thank you very much, everybody. You have a good night.